This universe, a little globe revolves around a star. It is the third star in a row. Mercury, Venus, Earth, of the planetary family. It is of a solid core covered over most of its surface with liquid. It has a gaseous envelope. Living creatures fill the liquid. Other living creatures fly in the gas, and still others creep and walk upon the ground on the bottom of the gaseous ocean. Man, a being of erect stature, thinks himself the prince of creation. He felt like this long before he, by his own efforts, came to know how to fly on wings of metal around the globe. He felt godlike before he could talk to his fellow man on the other side of the globe. Today, he can see the microcosm in a drop of water and the elements in the stars. He knows the laws governing the living cell and its chromosomes, and the laws governing the macrocosm of the sun, moon, planets, and stars. He assumes that gravitation keeps the planetary system together. Man and beast on their planet. The sea within its borders. For millions and millions of years, he maintains, the planets have rolled along on the same paths, and their moons around them, and man in these eons has arisen from a one-cell infusorium all the long way up the ladder to his status of Homo sapien. Is man's knowledge now nearly complete? Are only a few more steps necessary to conquer the universe? To extract the energy of the atom? Since these pages were written, this has already been done. To cure cancer, to control genetics, to communicate with other planets, and learn if they have living creatures too. Here begins Homo ignoramus. He does not know what life is, or how it became to be, whether it originated from inorganic matter. He does not know whether other planets of this sun or of other suns have life on them, whether the forms of life there are like those around us, ourselves included. He does not know how this solar system came into being, although he has built up a few hypotheses around it. He knows only that the solar system was constructed billions of years ago. He does not know what this mysterious force of gravitation is that holds him and his fellow man on the other side of the planet, with their feet on the ground. Although he regards the phenomenon itself as the law of laws, he does not know what the earth looks like 5 miles under his feet. He does not know how mountains came into existence, or what caused the emergence of the continents, although he builds hypotheses around these. Nor does he know from where oil came. Again, hypotheses. He does not know why, only a short time ago, a thick glacial sheet pressed upon most of Europe and North America, as he believes it did. Nor how palms could grow above the polar circle, nor how it came about that the same fauna fill the inner lakes of the old and the new world. He does not know where the salt in the sea came from. Although man knows that he has lived on this planet for millions of years, he finds a recorded history of only a few thousand years, and even these few thousand years are not sufficiently well known. Why did the Bronze Age precede the Iron Age, even though iron is more widely distributed over the world, and its manufacture is simpler than that of the alloy of copper and tin? But what mechanical means were structures of immense blocks built on high mountains of the Andes? It is a mystery. Why did brass come before iron if iron is so much easier to make and stronger? What caused the legend of the flood to originate in all countries of the world? Is there any adequate meaning to the term antediluvian? From what experiences grew the eschatological pictures of the end of the world? In this work, of which the present book is the first, of these questions will be answered, but only at the cost of giving up certain notions now regarded as sacred laws in science. The millions of years of the present constitution of the solar system and the harmonious revolution of the Earth, with all their implication as regards to the theory of evolution. The celestial harmony. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. The day consists of 24 hours. The year consists of 365 days, 5 hours, and 49 minutes. The moon circles the earth, changing its phases, crescent, full, decrescent. The terrestrial axis points in the direction of the polar star. After winter comes spring, then summer, then fall. These are common facts. Are they invariable laws? Must it be forever? Was it always so? The Sun has 9 planets. Mercury has no satellites. Venus has no satellites. The Earth has the Moon. Mars has 2 small trabants, mere pieces of rock, and one of them completes its month before Mars ends its day. Jupiter has 11 moons. This was back in the 1940s when he wrote this, the pre-space age, and 11 different kinds of months to count. Saturn has, Jupiter has 79 moons. Saturn has 82. That's the last current. Uranus has 5 moons here. That was what was known by science at the time. I'll just leave it at that. Neptune 1, Pluto none. The Sun rotates in an easterly direction. All planets revolve in their orbits in the same direction, counterclockwise if seen from the north, around the Sun. Most of their moons revolve counterclockwise in direct motion, but there are a few that revolve in the opposite direction, in retrograde motion. No orbit is an exact circle. There is no regularity to the eccentrical shapes of the planetary orbits. Each elliptical curve verges in a different direction. It is not known for certain, but it is assumed that Mercury permanently shows the same face to the Sun as our moon does with respect to the Earth. Information obtained by different methods of observation of Venus is contradictory. It is not known whether Venus rotates so slowly that its day equals its year, or so rapidly that the night side is never sufficiently cool. Mars rotates in 24 hours, 37 minutes, 22.6 mean period, a period comparable to the terrestrial day. Jupiter, which in volume is 1,300 times larger than the Earth, completes a rotation in the short space of 9 hours and 50 minutes. It's spinning. What causes this variability? Is it not a law that planets should rotate, or have days and nights? Still less that its day and night must return every 24 hours. If Pluto rotates from east to west, it has the Sun rising in the west. Uranus has the Sun rising and setting neither in the east nor the west, so it is not a law that a planet of the solar system must rotate from west to east, and that the Sun must rise in the east. The equator of the Earth is inclined to the plane of its ecliptic at an angle of 23.5 degrees. This causes the change of seasons during the annual revolution of the Sun. The axes of the other planets point in other directions, of seemingly deliberate choice. It is not a general law for all planets that winter must follow fall and summer equals spring. The axis of Uranus is placed almost in the plane of its orbit. For about 20 years, one of its polar regions is the hottest place on the planet. Then night gradually descends, and 20 years later, the other pole enters the tropics for an equal length of time. The Moon has no atmosphere. It is not known whether Mercury has any atmosphere. Venus is covered with dense clouds, but not of water vapor. Mars has a transparent atmosphere, but almost without oxygen or water vapor. Its composition is unknown. Jupiter and Saturn have gaseous envelopes. It is not known whether they have solid cores. It is not a general law that a planet have an atmosphere or water. Mars is 0.15 the volume of the Earth. The next planet, Jupiter, is about 8,750 times as large as Mars. There is no regularity of or relation between the size of the planets and their position in the system. On Mars are seen canals and polar caps. On the Moon, craters. The Earth has reflecting oceans. Venus has brilliant clouds. Jupiter has belts and a red spot. Saturn has rings. The celestial harmony is composed of bodies different in size, different in form, different in the velocity of rotation, with differently directed axis of rotation, with different directions of rotation, with differently composed atmospheres, or without atmospheres, with a varying number of moons or without moons, and with satellites revolving in either direction. It appears then to be by chance that the Earth has a moon, that we have day and night, and that their combined length is equal to 24 hours. That we have a sequence of seasons. We have oceans and water, atmosphere and oxygen, and probably also that our planet is placed between Venus at our left and Mars at our right. Heaven Man.
So vivid was the Great Father's celestial image, and so overpowering was his influence on civilization in its infancy, that the ancient chroniclers often gave him human form, recalling him as the first man. But he was no mortal of flesh and blood, a celestial giant whose body encompassed all the gods and composed the primeval matter of creation. The Great Father reigned over the prosperous age, and then departed amid great upheaval. The mythical accounts give this imposing figure such tangible and human traits. More than one scholar reduces him to a living man, an esteemed tribal ancestor whose heroic exploits succeeding generations progressively enlarged until the entire universe came under his authority. This is the approach of William Ridgway, who, in a survey of the best-known figures of the Great Father, argues that only an actual tribal chief could have left such a profound imprint on primitive community. Ridgway asks us whether the abstract sky, or the solar orb, or a vegetation spirit, common explanations of the Great Father, could produce such devotion, as is evident in the annual lamentations over the ruler's catastrophic death: Osiris, Brahma, Tammuz, Quetzalcoatl. Their devotees remember each as a living ancestor, whose passing was a terrifying calamity. Of course, Ridgway does not assume that one man alone accounts for all the traditions of a Great Father. Rather, he seeks to identify each in terms of a historical figure, quite distinct from the venerated ancestors of other tribes. If his argument against prevailing astronomical and vegetation theories carried great weight, they fail to explain the global parallels between the respective myths. Nor can one reconcile Ridgway's interpretation with the incontrovertible fact that, in the earliest accounts, the Great Father is manifestly cosmic. That many sacred histories, however, present the Creator King in human form is a paradox requiring an explanation. The solution lies in the nature of the legendary first man. Who was Adam? If one compares the traditions of Adam with the global image of the Great Father, there can be little doubt that this primeval ancestor was simply a special form of the universal monarch. According to Hebrew legend, Adam's stature was so great that he extended from earth to the center of heaven. His countenance obscured the sun. Like the universal monarch, Adam was Lord on earth, to rule and control it, teaching his subjects first arts, then sciences. Well, he had his priorities straight. The myths say that the terrestrial creatures took him to be their creator, and they all came to offer him adoration. While the chroniclers call this a mistake, substantial evidence shows that the tradition pertained more to a god than a man. In Gnostic and other mystic systems, Adam is not a mortal but a cosmic being whose body contained the seed of all later creation, as observed by G.G. Shalom, summarizing the traditions of the Hebrew Kabbalah. Adam, or Adam Kadmon, is the primordial man, that is, a vast representation of the power of the universe, which is concentrated in him. This Adam is the man of light, occupying the center of the cosmos and radiating energy along the axis of the universe. He is creator and supporter of the world, whose body encloses all the elements of life. And one interesting side note is that in astrology, which is also Hermeticism, basic principles, they have the cosmos in the shape of a man, and his head is by, I believe it's the Pleiades, which represents man's third eye, the pineal gland. Islamic mystics called Adam the universal man, or perfect man, upholding the cosmos. To the Ophites of the early Christian era, he was Adonis, the man from on high, or, in the words of Lenormant, the typical perfect man, that is, the heavenly prototype of man. It is one of the cosmonic fragments preserved in the extracts of Sanctirathon, as recorded by Philo of Byblos. Adam is born at the beginning of all things, and is identical with the Greek Uranos, heaven. The modern-day Mandeans of Iraq know Adam as the king of the universe, a personification of all spiritual man, of all that spiritual man is intended to be and achieve. This, of course, sounds almost exactly like the primordial God One of global legend. Indeed, in the myths of many lands, the first man and creator king are identical, though the Hindu Yama and his counterpart Manu appear as the creator and king of the world. They also signify the primal ancestor. Their character as the first man, however, does not mean flesh and blood. They are the celestial prototypes, notes Lenormand, symbolic of man in general. The role in the Hindu Yama is filled in Persian myth, not only by Yama, but also by Gaya Maritan, a legendary first king, a man of perfect purity, produced brilliant and white, radiant and tall. Sounds like an extraterrestrial. He too appears as the prototype of mankind. Many myths make no distinction between the creator and the first man. The oceanic Tiki is at once the first man and the creator or progenitor of man. Among the Koryak, the creator of the world is also the first man, the father and protector of the Koryak. In the Symbolian, North American Sayun tribe, say that it was the first man who brought the world out of the primeval water. They also say that the first man, the creator, that no man made him, and that he is immortal. The Eltiac Tartars similarly speak of a world man or first man. In the creation myths, he doubles for God himself and raises the world from the cosmic waters. Comparable is the world man of the Lapps, or the lonely man whom the Yakuts deem the first ancestor and whose dwelling pierced the summit of heaven. If the general tradition be our guide, Adam is the solitary god of beginnings, presented in human form. This was the opinion of the controversial Gerald Massey, who, enchanted by the depth of Egyptian cosmology, proposed that the Hebrew Adam echoed the older Egyptian Atum, the god who shone forth alone in the abyss. It matters little whether the relationship of the two figures is as direct as Massey suggested. Throughout the ancient world, the original god passed into the legendary first ancestor as the creative intelligence and voice, word of heaven. The Great Father came to be viewed as the thinking and speaking man, a towering giant whose body was the original cosmos. Both the tomb and later Adam possessed this distinctive character as heaven man, as in astrology too. But certain developments of the idea stand out. 1. The Egyptian version of the myth, the great god Atum-Ra, through tumultuous speech, brings forth a circle of subordinate gods as satellites, revolving in his company and forming his own limbs. The central god and his revolving members compose the primordial cosmos, heaven, world. The crucial term is Paut, P-A-U-T. It means primeval matter, referring to the material emitted by Atum, which took form as the cosmos. Paut is equivalent to the Ku, or fiery words of power, uttered by the great god. The term signifies at once the circle of the gods and body of Atum Ra, which is to say cosmos equals company of gods equals creator's limbs body. That the created cosmos emanated from the primordial God is a theme which persisted in later traditions of Adam. From Adam Kadmon sprang successive degrees of creation. Gnostic tradition knew Adam as the prima materia of the cosmos, a remarkable parallel to the Egyptian primeval matter, the limbs of Atum Ra. The great god's body embraces and is heaven, not only in Egyptian but all principal cosmology. Like Atum, the Sumerian An encompasses the entire heaven. Indeed, this very name signifies heaven, and one can trace the equation of God in heaven, or shining heaven, through all of the ancient languages. The Chinese Tian signifies both the high God and heaven, as does the Altiac Tengri, the Sanskrit Dias, and heaven, as does the Altaic Tengri. Dias, Latin Deus, carries the double meaning of God and heaven. It is useless to look to the open sky for an explanation of this equivalence. Originally, heaven meant the orchestrated cosmos, or body, of the God One, formed by the circle of lesser gods. The myths unanimously insist that this celestial order collapsed with the death of the great God, the Heaven Man. 2. All-embracing character of the Great Father facilitated an important development of the God's image at a time when cultural mixture could have destroyed the monotheistic theme. In ancient Egypt, almost every district seems to have had its favored representative of the God One, a fact which gives the great compendiums of Egypt, religion, pyramid texts, etc., a misleading appearance of confusion. How can we speak of a solitary God when Egyptian texts refer to an endless number of primary deities? 3. In a subsequent development of the myth, the Heaven Man passed into a mythical philosophical explanation of our earth and the material universe as a whole. Here the god appears as a primordial giant who existed before the deluge and gave his body to creation, not the creation of the primordial cosmos, but of our world with its mountains, seas, clouds, and surrounding heavenly bodies. A noteworthy example is the Scandinavian primeval giant, Ymir. In the prose, Edda, the gods fashioned the world from the giant's body. From his blood, the sea and lakes. From his flesh, the earth. From his bones, the mountains. His teeth become rocks and pebbles. His skull, the sky. And his brains, the clouds. The sparks and burning embers produced by his dismemberment became the stars. Compare the Hindu giant Purusha, whose body formed the world. His mouth was the Brahman, his 2 thighs the Vyase. From his 2 feet the Sudra was born. The moon was born from his mind. It's pretty crazy. From his eye the sun was born. From his navel was produced the air. From his head the sky was evolved. From his 2 feet the earth. From his ears the quarters. Purusha is the primal man. In Buddhist lore, this cosmic giant is Bodhisattva Manjukri. Elsewhere in China, the role belongs to the Demiurge Panku, whose body provides the material for creation. Zoroastrians claim that the created world was the giant sphere, cosmos, the body of the great god Zervan. All such heaven-sustaining giants can be best understood by reference to the original cosmos of the God One, rather than the open expanse to which the term heaven normally refers to today. 4. If the giant myths emphasized the material form of the heaven man, an age of metaphysics stressed the god's character as universal intelligence, raising his image to a high degree of philosophical purity. The God One became the first principle, first cause, mind, word or self, logos, Sophia, Tao, etc. Yet, in none of these cases did detached philosophy succeed in creating a pure abstraction. The Greek nous, N-O-U-S, the animating mind or intelligent spirit, was never fully divorced from the antecedent tradition of the heaven man. Both Vesuvius and CELESTISL tradition of heaven man. Both Vesuvius and CELESTISL identify the great mind with Prometheus, the primordial man who lived before the deluge. In Orphic description of the universal mind, it is hardly distinguishable from the Hindu giant Purusha. All things were contained within the vast womb of the god. Heaven was his head. Bright beams of stars were his radiant locks, and all productive earth was his sacred womb. The circling ocean was his belt. His body, the universe, was radiant, immovable, eternal, and pure ether was his intellectual soul. The ancients knew the mighty nous, by which he pervades, animates, preserves, and governs all things. Nous was the primordial one from which all things emanated, the central light which produced and regulated the cosmos body. An exactly equivalent notion was the Hindu universal self. There, the original concept certainly did not mean invisible soul, or anything like it. The cosmic self was Brahma, or Prajapati, the golden child, who appeared alone on the first occasion. In the beginning, say the Upanishads, Prajapati stood alone. The same texts say, in the beginning there was self alone. From the primordial self, enclosed all the life elements, issued the creation in successive degrees. From the self sprang ether. From the ether, air. From air, fire. From fire, water, etc. Adam Kadmon radiated the elements in similar fashion. Hindu thought portrays the universal self as the first form and the animating soul of the heaven man. In the beginning, this universe was nothing but the self in the form of a man. It looked around and saw there was nothing but itself, whereupon its first shout was, "It is I," whence the concept I arose. Then the self poured forth the creation. The created world, cosmos, in Hindu myth, took form as the giant Purusha, recognized as the body of Prajapati, Brahma self. Numerous traditions, the emanation or pouring out of creation, as the Greek god's speech. This is the root meaning of the Greek and Hebrew word, which signify really visible speech. The Chinese Tao, the primeval unity or first cause, also conveys the idea to speak. By the word of the Lord the heavens were made, states the Hebrew psalmist 33:6. This idea of the creative word of God, observes John Allegro, came to have a profound philosophical and religious importance and was, and still is, the subject of much metaphysical debate. But originally it was not an abstract notion. You could see the Word of God. In the Hebrew creation legend, the speech of the Creator is poured out as spittle or seed. The most forceful spurting of this seed is accompanied by thunder and the shrieking wind. The imagery takes us back to the thundering voice of Atum. In most creation myths, and certainly in the Egyptian and Sumerian prototypes, the Great Father, his life-bearing rays, his voice, word, and the company of gods, limbs, thoughts, limbs, all appear as powers seen and heard. The God is the celestial man, whose history became the overwhelming obsession of ancient ritual. Residing at the stationary center, the domain, which the Egyptians called the Maat, M-A-A-T, truth or wisdom, and the Mesopotamians denominated Apsu, residence of wisdom. The God commanded the cosmic revolutions. He was, in short, the creative intelligence, producing a new and harmonious celestial order. This was the heaven man, the ideal man, and the ideal king. In a later section of this book, I intend to show that ancient races the world over recorded pictures of the great God in his circular abode. The images were a circle with a cross in it. First one was a circle with a circle in it, and a circle with a cross in it. The second, more complete form showing streams of light radiating from the God to animate his city of heaven. The words which in the ancient languages denote this enclosure receive various translations as heaven, cosmos, world, land, earth, netherland, terms which take on vastly different meanings in the modern usage. In their original sense, the words signified one and the same thing. Terms which take on vastly different meanings in modern usage. In their original sense, the words signified one and the same thing. A band of light which appeared to set apart the sacred ground of the great God from the rest of space. One cannot begin a survey of the great Father without confronting his celestial enclosure. But a full discussion of this dwelling will be possible only after certain other aspects of the single God receive clarification. I mention the enclosure now in order to indicate the general and unconditional direction of this investigation, which, when texts cited in the following pages employ the terms heaven, earth, or world, the reader should know that the usual interpretation will not be my interpretation of the ancient Atum, or Ra. I note these special characteristics. 1. Primeval unity. Atum is the one, but also the all, though he is the solitary God of beginnings. Now, God would be the one and all. An assembly of the lesser gods. 1. Primeval unity. Atum is the one, but also the all, though he is the solitary God of beginnings. An assembly of lesser gods emanate from him and revolve in his company. These secondary deities, the Puat, the Puat, or circle of the gods, constitute Atum's own limbs. Atum's body is the primeval cosmos, denoted by the circle in the sign. That's the circle with the circle. 2. Regulator. Atum is the stationary god, the firm heart of the sky. His hieroglyph, however, is the primitive sledge, signifying to move. As the central light, or pivot, he imparts motion to, or moves the heavens while he himself remains Imhotep, at rest, directing the classical motions and the related cycles. He becomes the god of time. 3. The Word. The Egyptians recall Atum as the ancient voice of heaven. The Word came into being. All things were mine when I was alone. I was Ra equals Atum in his first manifestations. The texts describe the god's first manifestations as the bringing forth of his companions, his limbs, which issue or explode from the god as his fiery speech. This circle of secondary divinities receives the name Kanu, K-H-U, meaning words of power, but also brilliant lights or glorious lights. 4. Water God. A well-known chapter of the Book of the Dead includes this description of Ra. I am the great God who created himself. Who is he? The great God who created himself is the water. It is the abyss, the father of the gods. The great God and the celestial ocean, a lake of fire, are fundamentally one. The waters issue from the god, yet paradoxically give birth to him. 5. The sea. Atum is the masculine power of heaven, the luminous seed embodying all the elements of life, water, fire, air, etc., which flow from him in streams of light. He is the universal source of fertility, animating and impregnating the cosmos. What is most compelling about the portrait of Atum Ra is that numerous Egyptian divinities duplicate the image. The very traits of the great god, outlined above, are endlessly repeated in the figures of Osiris, Ptah, Horus, Khepra, and Amen, each of whom appears as the solitary god in the fiery sea, the god one who brought forth the company of gods as his own limbs, the god of the reverberating speech, the unmoving god, produced the celestial revolutions, the final source of waters and the impregnating seed of the cosmos. If he were to inquire of an Egyptian priest how he arrived at this notion of the supreme God, the priest would tell us that he did not arrive at the idea at all. The great God was a historical divinity who ruled heaven for a time, then departed amid great upheavals. The hymns and ritual texts, the priest would say, simply record the incarnation of the god in the primordial era and recount the massive cataclysms which accompanied the collapse of that era. As following sections will show, the general tradition is global and highly coherent. The universal monarch, the same cosmic figure whom the oldest races knew as the creator and supreme God, appears in the myths as a terrestrial king reigning over the Golden Age. His rule was distinguished for its peace and abundance, and he governed not one land alone, but the entire world, becoming the model of the good king Every terrestrial ruler, according to the kingship rights, received his charisma and authority from this divine predecessor. No mythical figure remains more enigmatic than the great king to whom so many ancient peoples trace their ancestry. Who was Osiris, the legendary ruler who led the Egyptians out of barbarism and reigned as king of the entire world? Who was Enki, whom the ancient Sumerians revered as the universal lord and founder of civilization? The same figure appears repeatedly as one passes to India, Greece, China, and the Americas. For the Hindus, it was Yama. For the Greeks, Kronos. For the Chinese, Hong Ti. The Mexicans insisted that the white god Quetzalcoatl once ruled not only Mexico but all mankind. In North America, the same idea attached to the primordial figure Manabozho. So vivid are the recollections of the universal monarch that his story usually forms the first chapter in the chronicles of kingship, and the kingship rights meticulously preserve a memory of the god-king's rule. Each stage in the inauguration of a new king reenacts the first king's life and death. The rites take the initiated back to the beginning, to the mythical creation. An extraordinary theme emerges in the original age of cosmic harmony and human innocence. The gods dwelt on earth. Presiding over the epoch of peace and plenty was the universal monarch who founded temples and cities and taught humanity the principle of agriculture, law, writing, music, and other civilized arts. This golden age, however, ended in the god-king's catastrophic death. What is most puzzling to modern commentators is that the king of the world, ruling the earth, is at the same time the creator, the God One. How did the ancients come upon his paradoxical notion? The Age of Kronos. Greek legends recall a remote and mysterious era of Kronos, the creator god who, wielding his sickle, ruled from the summit of Olympus, eventually displaced by his own son, against whom he warred violently. Kronos seemed to have appeared to the Greeks as a split personality, at once a radiant god, the very author of the world, and a dark demonic power. But in an old tradition, with roots in earliest antiquity, Kronos is preeminently the good king, his darker side concealed. First of all, the deathless gods who dwell on Olympus made a golden race of mortal men who lived in the time of Kronos, when he was reigning in heaven, and they lived like gods, without sorrow of heart, remote and free from toil and grief. Miserable age rested not on them. The fruitful earth unforced bare them fruit abundantly, and without stint. They dwelt in ease and peace upon their lands, with many good things, which in flocks and loved by the blessed gods. When Hesiod wrote these lines, in the golden age of Kronos was but a faint and often confused memory. To observe the antiquity of the idea, one need only refer to the cradles of ancient civilization, Egypt and Mesopotamia. Among the Egyptians, the father of the paradisal age possessed many names, but each tradition proclaimed the same original excellence of creation. Subsequently corrupted, the peaceful epoch was distinctly the age of Kronos, under a different title. Throughout their history, the Egyptians believed in a time of perfection at the beginning of the world, observes Clark. In the earliest age, say the Egyptian sources, the great god was the first king, a ruler whose life served as a model for all succeeding ages. With the god king Osiris, the Egyptians constantly associated a vanished golden age. As King Osiris, the beneficent being, taught his subjects to worship the gods, gave them the arts of civilization, and formulated the laws of justice, founding sacred temples and cities, and disseminating wisdom from one land to another. He became the benefactor of the whole world, but his eventual murder brought worldwide destruction. Among classical writers, Herodotus, Diodorus, Plutarch, the idea prevailed that Osiris lived on our earth as a man or a man-god. Egyptian sources, too, often portray him in human form. Yet the early religious texts say again and again that Osiris was the supreme light of heaven, ruling from the cosmic center. He was, in fact, the Lord of the gods, God One. His body formed the circle of Taut, T-U-A-T, Tuat, the celestial residence of the gods, or Duat, and the secondary gods themselves constituted the limbs of Osiris. Indeed, the traditions of Osiris melt into those of Ra and God One, who came into being in primeval time. Just as Osiris' followers remembered his rule on earth, so did other Egyptians recall the terrestrial reign of the creator Ra. To this age, states Linnermant, the Egyptians continually look back with regret and envy to declare the superiority of one thing above all other things imaginable. It was enough to affirm it's like had never been since the days of Ra. It's like never had been since the days of Ra. Ra, the father of the gods, reigned over the terrestrial world, but wandered away when the heavens fell into disorder. All chronological tradition affirms that Ra had once ruled over Egypt, writes Budge, and it is a remarkable fact that every possessor of the throne of Egypt has proven by some means or other to have the blood of Ra flowing in his veins. But the same belief applied to Horus, the god-king par excellence, as well as Atum, Khepra, Ptah, and Amen. The fact which must be explained is the memory of the creator king and his original age of abundance was far broader than any local tradition, and the story was not limited to Egypt, according to the theologian and historian Eusebius, who relates the account of the Babylonian priest-historian Berosus. The ancient tribes of Chaldea owed their civilization to a powerful and benevolent figure named Onans, who ruled before the deluge. Prior to Onans, the tribes lived without order, like beasts, but the new god-king who issued from the sea instructed mankind in writing and various arts, the formation of cities and the founding of temples. He also taught them to use the use of laws, of bounds, and of division, also the harvesting of grains and fruits, and in short, all that pertains to the mollifying of life he had delivered to men. And since that time, nothing more has been invented by anybody. Oans was simply the Greek name for the Babylonian Ea, the Sumerian Enki, worshipped in the cities of Eridu at the mouth of the Euphrates. The tradition dates to the earliest stage of Sumerian history, a time when the myths say that Enki and his wife, Damkina, governed the lost paradise of Dilmun, the pure place of man's genesis. They alone reposed in Dilmun, where Enki and his wife reposed. That place was pure, that place was clean. In Dilmun, the raven croaked not, the kite shrieked not kite-like, the lion mangled not, the wolf ravaged not the lambs. The inhabitants of this paradise lived in a state of near perfection, drinking the waters of life and enjoying unbounded prosperity. Ruling over this favored domain, Enki introduced the civilization to mankind, founded the first cities and temples, and set down the first laws. If, in the account of Berosus, the bringer of civilization, appears as a man or part fish, the earlier accounts call him the creator. His home was the cosmic sea, Apsu, the celestial waters of fire, rage, splendor, and terror. The priests of Ea, or Enki, deemed him Momo, the creative word. How about that, Momo, the creative word? Like the Egyptian creator Enki brought forth the second gods through his own speech. Diverse localities worshiped the same cosmic power under different names. In the ancient city of Lagash, the priests honored the god Ninurta as the father of the paradisal age. Ninurta founded temples and cities, and years of his rule connected with the beginning of the world were years of plenty. Ninurta scaled the mountain and scattered seed far and wide, and the plants, with one accord, named him as their king. The Sumerians themselves knew that Ninurta was the same as the vegetation god, Dumuzi, or Tammuz, son of the Apsu, the shepherd of mankind, whom classical mythology knew as Adonis, and whose catastrophic departure or death became the focus of ritual lamentations for many hundreds of years. But Enki, Ninurta, and Dumuzi were only aspects of the creator An, whose ideogram, as previously noted, appears as the earliest Mesopotamian sign of divinity. In all the myths and temple hymns, the Sumerians distinguished the present age from that day, or the days of old, when the gods gave man abundance, the day when vegetation flourished, the supreme figure reigning over his remote age. This remote age was An, the central and highest light, whose foremost epithet was Lugal, king. The Sumerians claim that the very institution of kingship descended from the heaven of An. It was An who produced the beneficent age, which the destiny was fixed for everything that was engendered by An. When An engendered the year of abundance. How widespread was this memory of a golden age, founded and governed by the Creator himself. It appears that the tradition was either preserved in or migrated to every section of the world in Mexico. Legends recount the ancient rule of Quetzalcoatl, who appeared from the sea to become the good and wise ruler of the Tolan in the golden age of Anahuac. The legend describes the god as a lawgiver, teacher of arts, and founder of purified religion. He was the ancestral founding king, and all later Toltec kings considered themselves as direct descendants of Quetzalcoatl. The Toltecs sang. All the arts of the Toltecs, their knowledge, everything came from Quetzalcoatl. The Toltecs were wealthy. Their foodstuffs, their substance cost nothing. They say that the squash were big and heavy, and those Toltecs were very rich. They were very happy. There was no poverty or sadness. Nothing was lacking in their houses. There was no hunger among them. In the story of Quetzalcoatl, one finds the same confusion of man and God as in the legends of Egypt and Mesopotamia. The chronicler Sahagan writes, although this Quetzalcoatl had been a man, they respected him as a god. Indeed, he was the creator, for he made the heavens, the sun, the earth. The Toltecs claim that in the beginning their race knew only one God. Only one God did they have, and they held him as the only God. They invoked him. They supplicated him. His name was Quetzalcoatl. Not only was Quetzalcoatl the giver of life, the evidence proclaims that the first divine generation emanated directly from him. But eventually the god, like his counterparts around the world, suffered a violent fate, bringing to an end his golden age. To the Egyptian, Mesopotamian, and American Indian accounts of the remote epoch correspond numerous legends of India, Iran, China, and northern Europe. India, the Hindu Brahma, Yama, Vishnu, and Manu as representatives of a solitary supreme God and creator governing the lost paradise as the first king, setting forth the first moral codes, and imparting to mankind the fundamentals of civilization. Yuma appears as universal lord, Manu as the king of the world, or universal legislator, to whom later monarchs traced their lineage. In the beginning, say the Upanishads, there arose the golden child. As soon as born, he alone was Lord of all. That is, this was Brahma, the one God, the God one. His prosperous epoch, however, ended in his own death and world-destroying conflagration. Iran, Yima, the Iranian transcript of the Hindu Yama, is patriarchal lord of mankind, the brilliant Yima, who first introduced law and civilization to the world. His age knew neither cold nor heat, neither age nor death. So resplendent was his rule that the world assembled around his throne in wonder. Then, when Yima diverged from the path of justice, the glory fled from his kingdom, and he was put to death. Thereupon the eternal spring became a devastating winter. China, in the earliest age, according to the ancient Chinese lore, the purest pleasure and tranquility reigned throughout all nature. Mankind suffered neither hunger nor pain nor sorrow. The whole creation enjoyed a state of happiness. All things grew without labor, and a universal fertility prevailed. It was over just such a paradise that the Yellow Emperor, Huang Ti, ruled. Considered the father of the Taoist religion, Huang Ti was the creator, a universal lawmaker and founder of arts and civilization. He was also immortal, and his fruitful era vanished upon his death. Northern Europe. During the Peace of Frodi, a mythical Danish king, no man injured another, and a magical mill ground out peace and plenty for the entire land. Frodi was the Norse god Frey, founder of temples and religious rites, the generous lord under whom peace and fruitfulness abounded, both the lord of the Swedes and god of the world, in the footsteps of the Scandinavian Odin, the creator. Well-being, peace, and good seasons followed. The legends style him the first king, the inventor of arts, and the source of human wisdom. But the age of Frey dissolved in flames, just as Odin and his prosperous kingdom came crashing down in the fires of Ragnarok. Here, then, is a worldwide motif, deeply ingrained in the religious and historical records of all principal races. The idea of Edenic happiness of the first human beings constitutes one of the universal traditions, states Lenormant. Ministering over his age is the universal monarch. While extolled as the solitary supreme God and the creator of the world, he yet appears as a ruler on earth, the ancestor of terrestrial kings. By his teaching, mankind rose from barbarism. But in the end, the god met a catastrophic fate, and his death or departure brought a violent termination of the First World Order. The rites of kingship. The ritual surrounding ancient kings amounts to a summary of ancient beliefs about the universal monarch. For every local sovereign was the successor and representative of the great god, who ruled the world during the Golden Age. The rites of kingship testify to the enormous power which the collective memory of this god-king held over later generations. Chronicles of kingship from Egypt to Mesopotamia to Persia to China to Italy to Northern Europe to pre-Columbian Mexico all trace the line of kings back to the first king, a supreme cosmic deity who founded the kingship rites. When history begins, there are kings, the representatives of the gods, states Hokart. No greater mistake could be made by historians than to assume that the sovereignty of kings grew out of economic or material concerns. Instead, the crucial forces were religious. The king was a product of ancient ritual, and the ritual centered on cosmic beliefs, which for several millennia could not be shaken loose. To comprehend the mighty influence of kingship in the ancient world, one must penetrate the mystery of the king's prototype, the universal monarch. In the first king's life and rule originated the prerogatives and obligations of all local sovereigns. It was the duty of every king to perform the rites instituted by the great God in the beginning, and to renew, if only symbolically, the primordial era of peace and plenty. In the ritual, the king turns the wheel of law, first turned by the great God, rides on the God's own cosmic ship, takes spouse the great mother, mistress of the great father, builds temples and cities patterned after the God's celestial abode, and subdues the forces of darkness, barbarians, just as the God defeated chaos in the beginning. Whatever the marvels of the great Father, is the duty of each local king to repeat them, or at least ritually to reenact these accomplishments, as if he were the great God himself. In his study of kingship in Egypt, Henry Frankfurt tells us that the great God was the first king. Whether named Ra, Khepri, or Atum, he is the prototype of Pharaoh, and the texts abound in phrases drawing the comparisons to certify his authority as a successor of the universal monarch. The king credits himself with having introduced the age of abundance, like that of ancestral sovereign. Thus, Thutmose III not only sits upon the throne of Atum, but claims to have achieved what had not been done since the time of Ra, and have restored conditions as they were in the beginning. Amenhotep III strives to make the country flourish as in primeval times. Similarly, when the Sumerian king Dungi ascended the throne, the people supposed that a champion had arisen to restore the paradise which existed before the flood, but was lost through transgression. Each king states Alfred Germanius, primeval king. Each king states Alfred Germanius was expected to reproduce the wonders of the great God, the primeval king. Thus does Ansabernerpal proclaim that upon his ascension to the throne, Raman has sent forth his rain. The harvest was plentiful, the corn was abundant, the cattle multiplied exceedingly. Among the Hebrews, every king is a Messiah, and at times the hope is expressed that the king will introduce a new golden age. Each is the test of the just or good ruler, who brings prosperity and a fruitful earth. This belief, which seems to have held sway over the entire ancient world, receives insufficient attention from historians. It points directly to an extraordinary memory of the universal monarch. Consider Homer gives as the ideal a blameless king whose fame goes up to the wide heaven, maintaining right, and the black earth bears wheat and barley, and the trees are laden with fruit, and the sheep bring forth and fail not, and the sea gives store of fish, and all from his good guidance, and the people prosper. Can this be anything other than the lost age of Kronos? Why should a fertile soil confirm the righteousness of kings? The connection becomes clear once one takes the universal monarch as more than an esoteric fiction and recognizes him as the shaping force behind the ideals of kingship. Just as peace and plenty followed in the footsteps of the first ideal good king, they should follow those of his successors. who share the charisma of the great predecessor. The further we go back in history, observes Young, the more evident does the king's divinity become. And in the Near East, the whole essence of kingship was based far more on theological than political considerations. It was self-evident that the king was the magical source of welfare and prosperity, and for the entire organic community of man, animal, and the plant. From him flowed life and prosperity of his subjects, the increase of the herds, and the fertility of the land. This image of the local king is drawn directly from the image of the universal monarch. Thus did the ancient ruler call himself king of the world, and claim to radiate power and light. Thompson tells us that the Mayan ruler declared himself as something like King of Kings, ruler of the world, regent on earth of the great Itzamna, a sort of divine right of kings, which would have turned James I green with envy. Walt Thompson calls an inflated notion of grandeur, seems to characterize all ancient kings, who shine like the sun and direct the heavenly motions. But the reason must be appreciated. Every king was, in a magical way, the universal monarch reborn. The institution and ritual of kingship point to the same great God and the same golden age, as do the myths of cosmic beginnings. And what historical conditions did this collective memory originate? And if the universal monarch governed the entire heavens as God one, why was he called an ancestor? What caused Venus and Mars to shift their orbits? When Venus became a new member of the solar system, it moved on a stretched ellipse, and for centuries imperiled the other planets. Because of its dangerous circling, Venus was diligently observed in both hemispheres, and records were kept of its movement. In the last centuries before this era, the 225-day year of Venus, and apparently also its orbit, were practically the same as in modern times. As early as the second half of the 7th century before this era, Venus, watched until then with anxiety, had already ceased to be a cause of dreadful expectation. It probably reached then the orbital stage in which it was found in the last centuries before this era, and where we still find it today. What caused the change in the orbit of Venus? I shall pose another problem besides the first. Mars did not arouse any fears in the hearts of the ancient astrologers, and its name was seldom mentioned in the second millennium. In Assyrio-Babylonia, in inscriptions made before the 9th century, the name of Nergal is found only on rare occasions. On the astronomical ceiling of Sinmut, Mars does not appear among the planets. It did not play any conspicuous part in the early mythology of the celestial gods. But in the 9th or 8th century before this era, the situation changed radically. Mars became the dreaded planet. Accordingly, Mars Nergal rose to the position of the frightful storm and war god. The question must then present itself. Why, previous to the time, did Mars signify no danger to the Earth? And what caused Mars to shift its orbit nearer to the Earth? The planets of the solar system move in nearly the same plane, and if one planet were to revolve along a stretched ellipse, it would endanger the other planets. The two problems, what caused Venus to change its orbit, and what caused Mars to change its orbit, may have a common explanation. The common cause may have been some comet which changed the orbits of Venus and Mars, but it is simpler to suppose that the two planets, one of which had a greatly elongated orbit, collided, and that no third agent was necessary to bring about that result. A conflict between Venus and Mars, if it occurred, might well have been a spectacle observable from the Earth. It is not impossible that the two planets came repeatedly into contact,
each time with different results. If a contact between Venus and Mars really occurred and was observed from the Earth, it must have been commemorated in traditions or literary monuments. When was the Iliad created? A mighty strife had waxen great within the members of the sphere. Empedocles. I wonder if that's where we get the word impede from. To this day, it has not been established at what date the Iliad and the Odyssey were composed. Even ancient authors differ greatly in reckoning the time when Homer lived. It was established to be as late as 685 BC. The historian Theopompus, and as early as 1159 BC, certain authorities quoted by Philostratus. Herodotus wrote that Homer and Hesiod created the Greek pantheon not more than 400 years before me, which would mean not prior to 884 BC or 484 BC being regarded as the year of Herodotus' birth. The question is still debated. Some authors argue that there was a long interval between the time when the epic works of Homer were composed and the time when they were put into writing. Others think that these works must have been created not long before the Greeks acquired the art of writing, about 700 BC. It is also argued that the Greeks must have known this art long before 700 BC, on the assumption that Homeric works were created much before that date. It is generally assumed that the fall of Troy antedated Homer by several generations, and also the great epic works were the creation of generations. The fall of Troy is sometimes thought to have taken place in the 12th century. On the other hand, it has been shown that the cultural background of the Homeric epos is that of the 8th or even the 7th century. The Age of Iron was well underway, and many other details would preclude an earlier scene. It is highly probable that the Homeric works were created at that time or shortly thereafter. Whether these poems were first sung by a bard who lived centuries after the destruction of Troy depends on the time when Troy was destroyed. The tradition about Aeneas, who, saved when Troy was captured, went to Carthage, a city built in the 9th century, and from there to Italy, where he founded Rome, a city first built in the middle of the 8th century, implies that Troy was destroyed in the 8th or late 9th century. But for what purpose do I burden my present work with this question? It may seem that the two problems, how Venus changed its orbit to a circle and how Mars changed its orbit so as to come in contact with the Earth, are weighted with a third problem from a far-removed field and in itself complicated. And even if these matters have something in common, how can a problem with three unknowns be solved? We shall come closer to a solution of the astronomical problem with which we are concerned, and the problem of the epics of Troy, if we recognize the cosmic scene of these epics. A simple test can be made. If Ares, the Mars of the Greeks, is not mentioned in the creations of Homer, this would support the view that the Iliad and Odyssey were created in the 10th century or earlier, or at least that the drama they describe had taken place not later than this time. But if Ares is presented as a war god in these epics, it would indicate that they were composed in the 8th century or thereafter. It was in the 8th century that Mars Nergal, an obscure deity, became a prominent god. Epic poems rich in mythology that originated in the 8th or 7th century would not be silent about Mars, Ares, who became outrageous at that time. With this yardstick at hand, the epic poems of Homer must be re-examined. The task will not be difficult. The Iliad is full of descriptions of the violent deeds of Ares, and in this epic, the story is told of the battles which the Greeks, besieging Troy, waged against the people of Priam, king of Troy. Deities took a prominent part in these battles and skirmishes. Two of them Athene and Ares were by far the most active. Athene was the protectress of the Greeks. Ares was on the side of the Trojans. They were the chief antagonists throughout the epopee. At first, Athene removed Ares from the battlefield. Then flashing-eyed Athene took furious Ares by the hand and spake to him, saying,
Ares, Ares, thou bane of mortals, thou blood-stained stormer of walls, shall we not now leave the Trojans and Achaeans to fight?
She led furious Ares forth from the battle, but they met together again in the field. Furious Ares was abiding on the left of the battle. Aphrodite, the goddess of the moon, wished to participate in the war also, but Zeus, presiding in heavenly Olympus, told her, Not unto thee, my child, are given works of war. Nay, follow thou after the lovely works of marriage. And all these things shall be the business of swift Ares and Athene. Athena or Athene? I'm going to find out. Thus the god of the planet Jupiter admonished the goddess of the moon to leave the combat, that it might be fought out by the god of the planet Mars and the goddess of the planet Venus. Phoebus, Apollo, the god of the sun, spoke to the god of the planet Mars. Then unto furious Ares spake Phoebus, Apollo, Ares, Ares, thou blood-stained stormer of walls, wilt thou not now enter into the battle? And baneful Ares entered amid the Trojans' ranks. He called, How long will ye still suffer your host to be slain by the Achaeans? The battlefield was darkened by Ares, and about the battle furious Ares drew a veil of night to aid the Trojans. He saw that Pallas, Athene, was departed, for she, it was that bare aid to the Danaans. Hera, the goddess of the earth, stepped upon the flaming car, and self-bidden groaned upon their hinges. The gates of heaven, which the hours had in their keeping, to whom are entrusted great heavens and Olympus. She spoke to Zeus.
Zeus, hast thou no indignation with Ares for these violent deeds, that he hath destroyed so great and so goodly a host of the Achaeans recklessly? Wilt thou in any wise be wroth with me if I smite Ares?
And Zeus replied, Nay, come now, rouse against him, Athene, who has ever been wont above others to bring sore pain upon him. So came the hour of battle. Then Pallas, Athene, grasped the lash and the reins, and against Ares first she speedily drave. Athene put on the cap of Hades, to the end that mighty Ares should not see her. Ares, the bane of mortals, was attacked by Pallas Athene, who sped the spear mightily against his nethermost belly. Then brazen Ares bellowed loud as 9,000 warriors or 10,000 cry in battle when they join in the strife of the war god. Even as a black darkness appeareth from the clouds, when after heat a blustering wind ariseth, even in such wise did brazen Ares appear, as he fared amid the clouds unto broad heaven. In heaven he appealed to Zeus with bitter words of complaint against Athene. With thee are we all at strife, for thou art father to that mad and baneful maid, whose mind is ever set on deeds of lawlessness. For all the other gods that are in Olympus are obedient unto thee, but to her thou payest no heed, for that this pestilent maiden is thine own child. And Zeus answered, Most hateful to me art thou of all gods that hold Olympus. Forever is strife dear to thee, and wars and fightings. The first round was lost by Ares. Hera and Athene made Ares, the bane of mortals, to cease from his manslaying. In his vein the poem proceeds, its allegorical features being only too readily overlooked. In the 5th book of the Iliad, Ares is called by name more than 30 times, and throughout the poem he never disappears from the scene, whether in the sky or on the battleground. The 20th and 21st books describe the climax of the battle of the gods at the walls of Troy. Athene would utter her loud cry and over against her spouted Ares, dread as a dark whirlwind, calling with shrill tones to the Trojans. Thus did the blessed gods urge onto two hosts to clash in battle, and amid them made grievous strife to burst forth. Then terribly thundered the Father of gods, and men from on high, and from beneath did Poseidon cause the vast earth to quake, and the steep crests of the mountains. All the roots of many fountained Ida were shaken, and all her peaks, and the city of the Trojans, and the ships of the Achaeans, and seized with fear in the world below was Aeneas, lord of the shades, lest above him the earth be cloven by Poseidon, the shaker of earth, and his abode be made plain to view for mortals and immortals. So great was the din that arose when the gods clashed in strife. In this battle of gods above and beneath, Trojans and Achaeans clashed. Together the whole universe roared and shivered. The battle was fought in gloom. Hera spread a thick mist. The river rushed with surging flood and roused all his streams tumultuously. Even the ocean was inspired with fear of the lightning of great Zeus and his dread thunder, when so it crasheth from heaven. Then rushed into battle a wondrous blazing fire. First on the plain was the fire kindled and burned the dead, and all the plain was parched. Then to the river turned the gleaming flame. Tormented were the eels and the fish in the eddies, and in fair streams they plunged this way and that. The fair streams seethed and boiled, nor had the river any mind to flow onward, but was stayed, unable to protect Troy. Upon the gods fell strife heavy and grievous. Together then they clashed with a mighty din, and the wide earth rang, and round about great heaven pealed as with a trumpet. Zeus, the heart within him, laughed aloud in joy as he beheld the gods joining in strife. Ares began the fray, and first leapt upon Athene, brazen spear in hand, and spake a word of reviling. These passages sound like they were written by Shakespeare or Francis Bacon. Wherefore now again, thou dogfly, art thou making gods to clash with gods in strife? Rememberest thou not what time thyself in sight of all didst grasp the spear, and let drive straight at me, and didst rend my fair flesh? This second encounter between Ares and Athene was also lost by Ares. He, Ares, smote upon her tasseled aegis. Thereon blood-stained Ares smote with his long spear, but she gave ground and seized with her stout hand a stone that lie upon the plain, black and jagged and great. Therewith she smote furious Ares on the neck and loosened his limbs. Pallas Athene broke into a laugh. Fool, not even yet hast thou learned how much mightier than thou I avow me to be, and that thou matchest thy strength with mine. Aphrodite came to the wounded Ares. So Aphrodite is the moon. Took him by the hand and sought to lead him away, but Athene sped in pursuit. She smote Aphrodite on the breast with her stout hand, and her heart melted. And her heart melted? Sounds like it would be the seas of the moon. These excerpts from the Iliad show that some cosmic drama was projected upon the fields of Troy. The commenters were aware that originally Ares was not merely the god of war, and that this quality is a deduced and secondary one. The Greek Ares is the Latin planet Mars. It is so stated in classic literature a multitude of times. In the so-called Homeric poems, too, it is said that Ares is a planet. The Homeric hymn to Ares reads, Most mighty Ares, chieftain of valor, revolving thy fiery circle in ether among the 7 wandering stars, planets, where thy flaming steeds ever uplift thee above the 3rd chariot. But what might it mean that the planet Mars destroys cities, or that the planet Mars is ascending in the sky in a darkened cloud, or that it engages Athene, the planet Venus, in battle? Ares must have represented some elements in nature Guess the commentators, Ares must have been the personification of the raging storm, or the god of the sky, or the god of light, or a sun god, and so on. These explanations are futile. Ares Mars is what his name says, the planet Mars. I find in Lucian a statement which corroborates my interpretation of the cosmic drama in the Iliad. This author of the 2nd century of the present era writes in his book on astrology this most significant and most neglected commentary on the Homeric epics. All that he, Homer, hath said of Venus and of Mars, his passion, is also manifestly composed from no other source than this science, astrology. Indeed, it is the conjecture of Venus and Mars that creates the poetry of Homer. Lucian is unaware that Athene is the goddess of the planet Venus, and yet he knows the real meaning of the cosmic plot of the Homeric epic, which shows that the sources of his instruction in astrology were cognizant of the facts of the celestial drama. My interpretation of the Homeric poem, I find, has been anticipated by still others. Who they were, it is impossible to say. However, Heraclitus, a little-known author of the 1st century, who should not be confused with the philosopher Heraclitus of Ephesus, wrote a work on Homeric allegories. In his opinion, Homer and Plato were the 2 greatest spirits of Greece, and he tried to reconcile the anthropomorphic and satiric description of gods by Homer with the idealistic and metaphysical approach of Plato. In paragraph 53 of his allegories, Heraclitus confutes those who think that the battles of the gods in the Iliad signify collisions of the planets. Thus I find that some of the ancient philosophers must have held the same opinion at which I arrived independently after a series of deductions. The problem of the date when the Homeric epics originated was raised here, to be solved with the help of this criterion. If the cosmic battle between the planets Venus and Mars is mentioned there, then the epics could not have originated much before the year 800 BC. If the Earth and the Moon were involved in this struggle, the time of the birth of the Iliad must be lowered to 747 BC at least, and probably to an even later date. The first earth-shaking contact with our planet had already taken place, and for this reason Ares is repeatedly called Bane of Mortals, blood-stained stormer of walls. Homer was thus, at the earliest, a contemporary of the prophets Amos and Isaiah, or more likely he lived shortly after them. The Trojan War and the cosmic conflict were synchronous. The time of Homer was not separated from the time of the Trojan War by several centuries, possibly not even by a single one. The statement by Lucian regarding the inspiring drama of the Homeric epics, the conjunction of the planets Venus and Mars, can be refined. There was more than one fateful conjunction between Venus and Mars. At least 2 are described in the Iliad. In the 5th and 21st books, the conjunctions were near contacts. The mere passage of one planet in front of another could not have provided material for a cosmic drama right now. End of subchapter. Stay tuned.
Joining us, wanted to discuss the recent loss, a shocking loss, of Wallace Thornhill, which, first, welcome to the show, Neil. And second, I felt Wall was going to be one of them guys that lived to be 100, He just seemed to have so much energy. I was so shocked.
I agree.
Yeah.
I didn't see it coming. Given the health of others and the age of others,
Right.
I figured certain people would go before others, but this was a warning shot right across my bow that I didn't see coming, and I should have seen it when John Cook or Cook passed on.
Yeah, that was sudden too, right?
Well, death always is, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's like you're alive and then you're not. But
yep, that's right. That's how it is. You're here 1 minute and you're gone the next.
I think the man could comfortably rest easy saying that he changed the world. I recall, well, I don't think we're at that point yet, but
we're in the thousands and they're in the millions. That's the problem.
Oh no, I meant that I was simply thinking of the first time that I met him. So
well, share that with us. I'm sure that a lot of people would like to know about that. You got some inside baseball.
It was interesting. I had met him online many years prior to meeting him.
Okay.
If you know what I mean.
What year? Do you remember?
Did I meet him or when I first met him online?
First met him online.
Oh, I would say 13 years before 2017-ish.
So about 2004?
That might be accurate, yeah. That's when the Thunderbolts forum was still up.
Okay.
I don't even know if you know what that is.
I don't. No, I heard of it before.
Before your time.
Before my time, yes. I came in around 2000, somewhere between 2014 and 15 when I came aboard.
Oh, it's sort of like you always remember where you were.
Mm-hmm.
I was going through the Thunderbolts pictures of the day, and then I clicked on the forum button, and then I registered, and
so they're no longer available? Is that what you're saying?
it was taken down.
Ah, that's too bad. Yeah.
Well, I managed to keep it up a bit longer by making an impassioned plea with David Talbot that basically said, if this forum did not exist, there would be a necessity to create it. It was as simple as that. I mean, if this place didn't exist, we would have to go do it anyway.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and they were getting punished because of the way that they were worried about internet laws changing and all this other crazy stuff. And let's just say the crazies are out of the bag now. David Talbot, the consequence of becoming somewhat popular now is that you're going to attract a bunch of people who wish to use you to prove their individual ideas.
That going around.
Yeah. Yeah. And in some cases, they're absolutely right to do that. But they don't stop where I guess I would stop.
Yeah.
Or where others would stop, where it's like, you're now entering into the realm of fiction. And your stories are bold, but are they true? Can you prove it? And your answer being, well, you can't prove it's not true, is not an answer. Okay, I don't accept that. It's not a scientific answer. You have a scientific question, you must have a hypothesis, and you go through it and you test it. And in that way, we know that things like dark matter have been made up because they need to be the facts needed to be made to fit the theory.
Yeah.
And so we ended up with what we ended up with. Now, I'm not worried about that. Some people are like flipping absolutely head over heels over it. Just by looking at it, you can see it's destroying itself. Just by following it in the news. And combine that with the problems with quantum mechanics and the people who are quote unquote losing faith in science because their models are unpredictable or useless, more or less, and they're not building a bigger collider won't change that.
Absolutely right. I agree 100%. You know, they just keep wasting money on useless things like gravity wave observatories and things like that. It's just ridiculous.
Well,
Now,
I'm happy that they did,
yeah.
at least because their controversial results are exactly what they should be, controversial.
I always get a kick out of every single time they are peering into space deeper and deeper with these probes. They're coming out with all the more reason why the universe is electric and just ignoring it. It's almost like a Saturday Night Live skit. They're so obtuse, it's ridiculous.
Well, and you can't blame them.
Right.
I can't. I want to, but I mean, have you watched The Wrath of Khan?
Oh, of course I have, yeah.
Okay, so in the Mutara Nebula, here goes in Captain Kirk, and he's being pursued in his damaged ship as well. The USS Reliant is pursuing them, and they're trying to and they're in this cloud. There's fluctuating electricity going on, and little sparks and stuff. You can see it in the distance, you know, glowing and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was 82. And they got that through a description of what they thought a nebula was by some astronomers, and they made that special effect. And that's it. That's all they had. That's all they had going in. And now that image is seared into my brain as what a nebula is.
Yeah, what nebula did you call that?
I said it was Mutara. I think that was the name of it in the show, the Mutara Nebula. I don't know. Maybe I'm
Was
wrong.
it a real nebula or no?
No, it was just for the show. Sorry.
I see.
It's a special effect that was used several times in the show, though, in Star Trek Next Generation and such.
Now, I saw it when it first came out, so it's been a while. I think that came out in, what, the early 80s?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I could find a nice little picture of that.
Battle in the Mutara, I got it. Yeah,
I was right.
yeah, you were right. Yeah, I'll share screen with you.
Nailed it.
Oops, that's not the right thing. We talk about things, I'll just go to different websites. That's what I usually do anyway.
Well, I'm not seeing. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, but so
big. There it is.
Yeah, I know it's hard. It's hard for me to make it real big, but I'll do it later when I'm cutting the video. Yeah, but anyway, so your point
There,
being,
that's the effect right there.
yeah,
See what I'm looking at? See that beautiful picture? In 1982, that was the best special effect we ever had of what a nebula probably looked like. Not until 2 years later, they were using, in 1984, they were using that, what was it called? They were using the special, shots from Voyager as they went by Jupiter. And they used that in 2010, A Space Odyssey. So they got some really good shots of Jupiter and Miranda and so forth. Yeah, just Jupiter, Voyager. Yeah, Voyager. Yeah, I don't know which one took the best shots. So, but that's
they had so many. Yeah, I remember I can get it to show on animated GIS. It's better. It's always better. Yeah, right there. That's Voyager headed straight towards Jupiter.
You know that I actually saw that with my own eyes?
Oh, really? How?
With a telescope, obviously.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I've seen Jupiter with a telescope too. It's cool. It looks like a mother with little ducklings, you know.
The red spot, though, that was the part that's disappearing, and I'm glad that I got to see it.
It is disappearing, I find?
Well, according to it's losing strength. I mean, earlier pictures of the size of that storm made it comparatively massive. Yeah. Like it was even bigger than it was in the past. If you look at a historical drawing of Jupiter, I'm sure you'd find something along the lines. Actually, let me type one in. I want to see.
That's Voyager 1 right there. So what I just want to digress, though, get back on the subject of Wall. So I don't remember what brought us to Jupiter, but it was cool. But just speaking of Wall, so what was 2004? You met him online? Was that it?
Well, he defended me because I incorrectly used the word induction.
Okay.
I know that sounds kind of weird, but
Well, conduction, capacity, and induction are the three big words in electricity, right? Electric engineering.
no, you got them wrong. But you got close. Induction is definitely one. Capacitance is
Yes, capacitance.
But-
That's it. Yeah.
But the induction, I basically said that magnetism was induced in these, perhaps maybe by the fact that there is an electric field, and the alignment of these molecules. Basically, I used the term incorrectly, and it showed my ignorance. And the person in charge was that astronomy guy. He was invited to the forum to have a debate. And of course, he mocked everything that these people did. And he seized on what I said and lambasted me.
Who was that? Oh, okay, the astronomy guy. Okay.
Yeah, the astronomy guy. That was his name. I don't know if he's making videos still or whatever. But anyway.
So Wall came to your aid.
Well, he said there's no need to bash the guy. I think you understand his premise is he was trying to say that there was somehow an influence between this and that. And that, because he used the word induction, doesn't mean that you have the right to make fun of him. He's an amateur, And now, which is more impressive because Wall is himself self-taught with regards to electrical engineering.
Yes.
I went to school for electrical engineering, and
He seemed to know his stuff.
well, that's what I mean. I recognized that although he was self-taught, when I was done learning electrical engineering, going back, I could not fault him on his premise or his ideas, except for perhaps one, which I did end up challenging him, not directly though. It would be a little bit presumptuous of me to actually do that.
Yeah.
But I was lucky to have won the scholarship to go to, in 2015, to go to Phoenix to meet all these people. And, I was thoroughly excited, obviously. The event had a situation in the book room, we'll call it, not off the main room. And during the quote-unquote downtimes, these people were still booked. So even if they weren't talking on the stage, okay, and listening intently to others on the stage, they were outside in their off time from that to be there giving other little talks about things. So I was going to say, he has my shirt on.
No, he does?
Yeah, I have that shirt.
I have the Squatter Man. I got it.
I got them both.
Yeah.
Had to get them both. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think that's me. Yeah, but you can see pictures of me, I think, in 2015. I don't know. Anyway, it's neither here nor there.
Did you ever meet him in person?
Oh my God, yes, of course, several times.
So when was that, and what was the occasion?
Well, I was sort of working my way up to it.
Okay, keep going.
In this conversation,
Carry on.
he spoke on the way that the Earth was formed, and I questioned that after he was done. Like, I listened intently, and besides my getting a few consternated looks, I didn't interrupt him, obviously. And it was only supposed to be a short update, and he had to get on to other things. I mean, he basically had an hour off, and he took 20 minutes to have another talk. So I wasn't going to interrupt him.
Right.
But one of the advantages of being one of the winning scholars is, they take you right up and shake the hands of the people there. So that's how I met them the first time. It's like Susan took me up directly and was like, "This is Wallace Thornhill. This is Donald Scott. This is David Talbot."
So how did you get that? You did something, like you wrote something, or?
I wrote a paper called "As History Has Shown," and it was my interpretation of the events and why we should basically look in a different direction than what is being said, because our understanding of the foundational principles of the universe are extremely lacking, and our point of view is just as dangerous as the point of view of fighter pilots only fighting in 2D. It's that kind of thought. We're throwing metal spaceships through electric fields that are 500,000 volts, and we wonder why they blow up. So the situation with Wall in this particular tape, he was having a conversation. Now, his main gist was the way that the Earth was carved. He said that the oceans could have been carved. They have a mid-ocean ridge. This ridge, this whole thing could be not unlike that of Mars when we look at Mars scars, or the Grand Canyon when we look at its scars, the way that they are stepped V-shaped trenches, following the principles of, well, I guess for lack of a better term, following the principles of a Townsend discharge. So this was something that he's never really done before. Really talked about that aspect of it, the formation of the planet. It just wasn't brought up much before. So I was talking to a lady whom I found out later was Jean Hafner, who ran the bookstore area and was a volunteer for the Thunderbolts. One of the people who, behind the scenes that make things run well. And a few others like-minded who wanted to explore this topic, but Wall left. I said, I have a different point of view, and she goes, what's your point of view? And I explained my point of view is using the gentleman named Jan. Unfortunately, I can't remember his name right off the top of my head, but he basically brought up the hollow Earth seismology. Like if you typed in hollow Earth seismology, that would be him. In my opinion, he had some valid claims. He couldn't explain it. And
explain what?
Why he thought that why the core of the planet seems to be hollow. Where we think that there's a solid metal core, he thinks that it goes from solid to liquid to an empty space. And he generally proves it with his findings. He's not saying that it's livable. He's not saying anything like that. In fact, I would say if there was a hell, that would define it right there. Like it would be an impossible place to be. Okay, as any human being, you could never be there. But what is making it expand? And this vexed me for a while. until I came to something talking about the way that they thought the Earth was formed prior to plate tectonics. They thought the Earth was divided into several different land masses, which were all, or areas or balls, I guess, that were all crushed together into form one sphere. And the resulting disintegration of the coating of these further planets, and the fact that there was an opening left in the middle of it allowed that opening to spool gases to form using the magnetic fields and form a vortex. And this vortex eventually carved out and made the hole that's in the middle of the planet and would likely push the planet open.
No, this is this other guy that says it, not Wall.
This is me.
Oh, that's you. Okay.
This is me. Okay. This is.
So you told Wall that.
I told the other people that were there that.
Okay.
I eventually told Wall about it. And as you may or may not know, it is, it's discussed by Wall and others now in regards to things like Jupiter and Earth. So that idea that there was an expansion, and the reason that the mechanism was given is because normally there's no mechanism. See, and this, of course, means how did the planet expand? What, are you dumb? You know, like, come on, right? But in the electric sense, once I explained it to Wall, I said to Wall straight up, if this circular area was carved out by this vortex, it would be equidistant on all sides and would be positively charged, because it would be a positively charged surface pushing against itself across the void.
Okay.
So it would try to push the planet apart. I mean, this is the electric force we're talking about here, trying to physically push the planet apart. Okay, and now, the reason this is interesting is because this is something that happens with magnetic fields, and Wall knew this, is that if you, for example, I take a bunch of magnets and I put them around a big magnet, right? And I suddenly increase the size and diameter of that magnet in the middle, if I could do such a thing, all the other magnets push apart and get farther away from this magnet. It's like they stay in their own ring at a certain distance. And the argument is therefore made, well, would the planets also push themselves open? Because they'd have less electric pressure on the outside, as they did when the Earth was in the golden age. Could the oceans be relatively young? You know, type of thing.
That's a mighty heavy conversation.
Yeah, and we had a great conversation about that, and I believe that our chosen location for this incredibly intellectual discussion with Pierre Robitaille and oh my God, I feel terrible. Our math gentleman, the gentleman who knows everything about math, whose name escapes me right at the moment. Stephen Carruthers.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, the reason is because the location was Hooters. We were in Phoenix downtown.
Having a beer at Hooters.
At Hooters. That's exactly when. Yeah. That's where we had this conversation. So it was.
We always went to Phoenix to play in the MSPL World Series.
Oh, there you are.
We went to Hooters, so I've been there. That's crazy. Well, I don't want to make a left turn, but I just want to share something with you. You know, the Earth is a colloid, much like blood cells, much like the sun. And Walt Thornhill had said that he believed the core of the sun was iron. And you know,
me too.
The core of our blood cells is iron too.
We had that discussion.
Yep. Oh, really? And then you know the blood cell, the outer shell is maintained from the inner by negative 70 millivolts. It's called zeta potential. And yes. I think that the Earth and the Sun are probably very similar.
I would think that you're right, I think that if we were to think of the Earth all the way down to the core, we're going to find life all the way down.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's possible. You know,
That's
there
my
are fish
opinion.
that exist in vents where they should be cooking.
Right.
Yeah.
And the stuff that's coming out of there, the reason that the Earth is cracking and being pulled apart is because of that. I think that the magnetism or current of our solar system changed, and when that changed, or like, for example, when we were no longer orbiting Saturn, for example, you can say that that was recent, or you could say that according to, I would go with, I hate to say this, given that we were talking about Walt Thornhill, but John Cook seems to make a better argument that we were dropped off here by Saturn first and started getting perennial plants, and Saturn came back every 23 million years and messed us up. And then we got picked up again when she flung by, and we were sort of caught in that golden age there for a while. But it couldn't really change what was already happening, which was the planet was expanding. And it was expanding because of the fact that we were dropped off around a new sun that had a different electrical potential than the current, the one that we were in. So that changed the electrostatic pressure and increased the electrostatic pressure of the center of the planet. So the planet expanded, more or less. And the only way that it could be explained is that there's a liquid core around that empty space. And that liquid core must be molten, much like the surface of the sun is.
Like a plasma.
Well, I think a plasmoid exists in the center of the planet, yes.
Do you think the Earth ever has a possibility it could explode?
Yes. I think about that a little bit every day.
I know, you're not alone. Halton Harp thought that it was expanding too fast.
Yeah, I think he's right.
Yeah.
I don't think it would, I think that our winner here is the sheer volume of oceans and our network of volcanoes.
Yeah.
I know that sounds terrible, but before the whole thing would actually explode, like really pop, the pressure would have to build so all the volcanoes will want to pop.
I read that volcanoes are the Earth's circuit breaker.
I think they are. Yeah. I think that's why it makes a lot of sense when you realize that they really surround one half of the planet. And that planet half happens to be the lowest, okay, and perfectly friggin' smooth, which is basically the Pacific Ocean.
Right.
And the rest, if you think about the land left over from the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, just the land left over, think of that like dirt on a metal ball. And the electrostatics are just slowly heating up and blowing little pieces out of it all the time.
Man.
And that's basically what's going on all the time. With
the Marianas Trench, I don't mean to step on you, I'm sorry. Sometimes I have to blurt things out because I'm going to, I'll forget it. But the Earth they found, in the bottom of the Marianas Trench, the Earth is expanding. But they don't know where it's expanding to. I mean, after a while, something's going to have to pop.
The question becomes: is there subduction?
What is subduction?
Subduction is basically if the Earth is expanding, some places along the edges should be subtracting.
Yes, that's what I meant.
And underneath the subduction, volcanoes should form. Okay, according to their theory. I don't agree. I think that this is an electrical phenomenon, and it's happening because of the flatness of the Pacific Ocean. That's why the flatness of the Pacific Ocean.
You're back.
Yeah, and it should be the same as in the Atlantic Ocean. We have like the Canary Islands and a few other volcanic islands. That's all it needs. Iceland that can process the Atlantic Ocean. The Atlantic Ocean is really not that big compared to the Pacific.
Now, do you think that it was carved by the massive amounts of waters that got dumped from Saturn, or one of the?
I don't know.
gas plants?
I honestly don't know if massive
they
amounts
just
of water
flooded the
got dumped
lowlands?
from Saturn. I don't think it did.
It didn't come from Saturn, you think?
I don't think the theory is required.
But where would we have gotten their water? A brown dwarf star have copious amounts.
No, according to their theory. See, when you say that brown dwarfs have copious amounts of water, that's because they've detected two things coming in their thing. The same thing they detected in comets. They detected O and H. But that's not H2O. That's O and H.
I didn't know that.
Right. It's hydrogen monoxide, not dioxide. And so that is, so that's why I think that they're wrong on a lot of these ideas. Now, did I think that water could have come from Saturn? Yes, totally. Do I think it did? Maybe not the way we think it did. I think if I was a betting man, I would say that the Earth was subjected to an electrical etching above the north and south pole that was building up material in the south and extracting it from the north. This extraction from the north lowered the global overall water level, and it rained down all around, or snowed down all around this area, and it became the part of the Laurentine ice sheet and so forth. That's why just beyond that, the sun shone, and that's where the woolly mammoths lived, and eating buttercups like we found, underneath this wonderful
that grew 1,000 miles away.
Yeah, and they were underneath this thing, looking up at this monumentally green, glowing, beautiful thing up there in the northern hemisphere. That's what I think. But it's also holding up water because the gravity of Saturn plus whatever other planets were up there. Okay, even though they were a million miles distance compared to, or 2 miles distant, million miles distant compared to, say, the orbit of the moon, which is 237,000 miles. So if you know how big the moon is 0.3 gravities of Earth, and at arm's length, it is the size of an aspirin. So this thing was a million miles away, but it was the size of Jupiter, or size of Saturn.
How old did Wall think the Earth was? Did he ever say to you?
No. We had a debate. Our debate was never about that type of thing, because the question always remained, well, when did the Earth show up here? Yeah. Are you right, or are they right? Personally, as much as I agree with Wall on a lot of things, electric gravity, for example, and many other things that he's come across, I would always debate him on the age of the Earth, because we have evidence of 23 million year hits, and we have evidence of long before this concept even came into being, and the idea of flowering plants being as old as 530 million years. Well, that's orchids, by the way. And orchids are found to be that old. Well, the only way that could happen is in a perennial system. So
orchids are strange. I heard they take like 9 years to grow.
Yes, but they eventually become perennial. See, that's the weird thing about them. Yeah. It's like they were somewhat of a plant before we got dropped off by Jupiter and sort of adapted to work under the sun. You know what I mean? And became flowering every year. But it was like one of the first plants to ever do it. Now, do I think that Wall, because of this one thing, that Wall could be entirely wrong the whole time about that? No. But I think that me, being someone like that, wants to preserve a legacy. I think that would be the wrong one to build on, only because, let me face it, this is no longer being judged by them. They're gone, in a way. I mean, as I said, Don Scott, bless his soul, should do whatever he wants and ignore us for the rest of his life. I mean, just enjoy it. Just enjoy whatever time he has left on this planet with his wife and his grandkids and whatever he wants. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that's for me, because he's done his service to king and country. David Talbot has suffered a stroke. He doesn't deserve to be drugged through any sort of ordeals whatsoever. So who's going to be the person who judges whether or not these are all true or all wrong or what? Well, it's going to be us. And people like myself have read all of it, or at least heard them all explained to him by the authors themselves. So is David Talbot right? Well, he has this idea about this beautiful, we saw, it's always been this way, and then we got dropped off around the sun.
So is David Talbot doing better as he recovered?
I do not know. I do not know. But again, it's nothing that I'm pushing.
Do you think the future for Thunderbolts looks good? Or do you?
I would have to say that the future of Thunderbolts is a group of people, and I do not know. As a community, the community is better than it has ever been.
It's good.
Okay, if you think about it, more people talk about it now than did 10 years ago, and 100 times more than they did 10 years before that.
It speaks for itself. You just have to give it an open-minded look, and then all the facts will nail you.
Well, exactly, and they're going to keep producing things, and they have ideas and everything like that, and they're going to keep reporting on it until whatever money or whatever agency is doing it finally says I'm retiring or hands it off to someone else. I don't expect, the reins of this are not important to me, because the community itself has hit a point where I can, instead of being a fight on whether or not John Cook is right or Dave Talbot's right, okay, I don't care. I mean, whether or not they're right or wrong is not as important as the evidence they bring to the table. Mm-hmm. Just, I mean, having a debate over, it's like having a debate over, basically you're just saying, did it happen 12,000 years ago, or did it happen 520 million years ago? Mm-hmm. And we don't even know if those ages of 520 million years are accurate anyway.
Yeah,
because
it's just,
we don't know how radiation, we don't know how electricity and electric charges affect radioactive decay, except it seems to in a positive way. The higher the thing is charged, the quicker it decays. So,
one of the biggest things, because I discovered, I'll spit it out. I discovered Belikovsky from Wall, and he gave him a lot of propers, and rightfully so. And that then you even can go back further to Russell and other people. Then, if the mainstream would have just hitched up to people like that, man, who knows how far along we'd be right now.
Well, number one, I don't agree with Russell, you see.
Yeah, but I mean, he did.
Now, but his thinking, it was very interesting.
Yeah.
It showed a different way of looking at things.
He just said everything is electricity.
No, and these are the parts I agree with. But other parts, I think of him as a charlatan.
I don't know that much about it.
But that's just me being a person who works on this sort of thing. Like, I want to know. I want to, there's stories here. Like, I mean, just the implications of what I said indicated bad blood between certain members of the Thunderbolts community.
I didn't know that.
Well, the implications are there just by what I said. Mm-hmm. By saying it doesn't matter who agrees with whose theory.
Right.
Well, people did argue this strongly, getting across tables strongly at conventions in the 90s and such.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now, and some of these people, were persona non grata or whatever. Not really, but sort of like, you better
Outsiders.
not here.
Outsiders.
No, I'm an outsider. They welcome me.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that basically when somebody doesn't agree with your theory,
Yeah.
just like in conventional, the thing we're arguing about, the way that modern scientific institutions have groupthink, and they have cliques, and they work together to ostracize those who are on the outside of the chosen theory. Well, whether or not he wanted to or not, Wall and Dave and others did that unconsciously. Does that make them bad people? No, that makes them human people. And they've easily, in the time that I have seen, luckily I came in at the end of something that could have been an entire lifetime of bitterness. But when I saw them at the conventions and they were speaking again.
Very personable, were they?
Well, they were at least speaking.
Okay. Who's they? Are we allowed to know?
Well, I just mentioned two of them. For example, Dave Talbot's point of view from the Saturn myth book, and John Cook's point of view, or Janelle Cook's book from SaturnCosmology.org.
Yeah, John Cook's, he's a little orthodox with his dates. He goes way back to the billions, And
he's also dead.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I like his theory.
I
just don't agree with the time, that's all.
But neither one of them can change now.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they put forth something and they became glued to it. Now, when I look at John Cook's work, I see it in conventional chronologies. But I also have to admit now that chronologies can change based on radioactive decays and the strength of the electric field at the time. And what we're talking about is the strength of the electric field changing.
Yeah.
And how it changed the planet. So right back, to bring it all the way back down to Wall, this is why, whether or not the Earth was hollow and how it was formed changes everything about how we view the way that the world is in the electric universe. Like, did it happen quickly or did it happen slowly? And here's the thing that makes it interesting. When all that water was being held up by the North Pole, and all the mass at the North Pole, being Saturn and perhaps Uranus and other such bodies, Mars and Venus and so forth, and a slew of moons probably. Well, that would pull a lot of water up. Plus, that water would get vaporized and get snowed down into big giant ice sheets, which that seems to be fairly accurate to what occurred. Now, the thing is that when those bodies left, Saturn almost ran into them, as you know, and flung them out to their current orbits. And as such, we were free of the electric field of the plasma field of that conjunction that we were in, and we were now fully immersed in the plasma field of the sun.
Now, you see, I like the way he does the pictorial stuff. I think it's brilliant work.
Of course.
Yeah.
But the argument then is it more spectacular that we caught back up to Saturn and got picked up by it again, or is it more spectacular that we got dropped off here once? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the argument.
Right.
Now, and of course, at the end, I don't think it's that big an argument, because these are things that can be answered later. It doesn't change the overall theory. Some people can say, well, this changes this, that changes that. But at the end of the day, when that conjunction left, suddenly there was no heat above the northern pole. Okay, so the northern pole no longer had the heat and the electricity vaporizing all the water. And the muggy atmosphere that was generated by all this vaporized water, which started coming back out of the atmosphere because of lack of heat. And it rained, and it rained, and it rained. And of course, the entire ocean rebalanced itself. Basically, it was being held up on one end of the planet, well, both ends, because it would be over around Antarctica as well. But because that's how tides work. Anyway, then they would meet in the middle at the equator and bunch up and get higher than it's ever been before, like literally cover the pyramids high or cover a mountain high type stuff, and then go back and slosh and then come back again. Like, I don't know if you thought you were going to die then, but you were going to die the second time it came back in. Like, holy crap, man.
Yeah,
like they had no chance whatsoever. And that was all the people who lived in the lowlands that we would consider underwater now. So no wonder when after it was done raining and everything like that and all the weather rebalanced, it was like, yeah, the water around the equator rose 150 friggin' meters. That's crazy. I don't think it was just ice melting that did that. I think that was the going away of these bodies, and of course the lack of vaporization of the water that etched all of the Canadian Shield into a crisscrossing mess, by the way. It's a beautiful thing because it's so isolated, human beings never been there. Really, I mean, truly been there, if you know what I mean.
You know, it's thought that the entire North American continent was like electrocuted all at once, you know, like
yes, that was
area or something.
Area lighting. This is where I go with. This is where we go from. We jump into another tragic loss.
Yeah,
Michael Steinbacher.
Yes, I remember.
He's the gentleman who came up with the idea that this diorite formation in the middle of this mountain range, in the middle of California and wherever it was there, was just the center of a giant arc that basically formed the Rocky Mountains and all the way up to Canada. And he has really good reason to do that. Think that. I would say that too.
Yeah.
I would. I know it seems crazy, but the thing that makes mountains different than just other things is the amount of magnetism and magnetic elements that are in them, the amount of high amount of iron in the rocks, because it makes it clump up and form into points and stuff like that. Just like if you could envision mountains being sprinkled from toner copier stuff onto magnets. You know, that's kind of how mountains get formed in their weird shapes.
Yeah, that's right.
As opposed to something that's wearing down. Because I mean, you can see how sharp the edges are on some of these things, and you're like, how did that happen?
Yeah, there's different kinds of mountains too, because when you get out west, like in Nevada like that, it's more like a conical dump. You can almost see where it was, either melted or dumped and melted, like a cake,
And my initial thing and unfortunately, I never got a chance to talk with Talbot about this, and I think that this is one thing that I think is the next step for the electric universe, really, in my opinion, is examining ancient sites made by mankind and defining the hits that they were in, like where the hits were and what they did and what they looked like. And because we see that certain sides of temples, especially in Mesoamerica, were blasted, but only from one side. And the same thing happened in the Minoan culture in Crete. Just many examples of that. So with this damage being lopsided and suggesting a lateral blast wave, there is no other explanation, but either there was a giant meteor hit, a nuclear bomb hit, a meteor, by the way, which we can't find. Okay, we can't find it. A nuclear bomb that we can find no radiation from, or an electrical event. Those are your real options. And that's something that only we could, that's one thing that only we can answer. As the electric universe, if I was to be a betting man, that is where I would go. And that's why I've always been focused on getting to that point where we can start looking at, I mean, no offense to people like Brian Forrester, but they have no idea what they're talking about.
Really?
No, he knows what he's talking about against on all the stuff, but his reasoning behind it.
Oh, I'm not aware of that. I'm not familiar with that. I just think that he's following people like Graham Hancock and. Yes, I know. And Graham Hancock is phony.
Well, it's neither here nor there whether or not he's a phony. I credit him with the book Footprints or Fingerprints of the Gods,
okay,
and the reason. Let me be clear. The reason that I give him any thanks on that alone is because without him, I would never have even looked at the Thunderbolts.
Without who?
Without Graham Hancock. His book.
Hancock? I never heard him mention Thunderbolts.
No, he didn't. He didn't. No, but the fact that he introduced me to the idea of a worldwide culture around the world. Yeah. That was very interesting to me.
Yeah, I heard a couple of his lectures on the pyramids that I began to like him and follow him. But you see, once I learned about Velikovsky and, the whole species adaptation thing, I really just didn't have very good look.
I'm not saying everyone go grab his book and believe him. Trust me, he's the truthful soothsayer. No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that I thank him for that. The open mind. When I needed it.
I can give you that. I agree.
And
me too.
And that allowed me to, now I have the capacity and the understanding to recognize some of the things that Brian Forrester, which he's going, it looks like they were hit by maybe a giant meteoric wave or something, and I'm like, that's melt damage and that's blast damage. And I that blast damage up there, that blast damage over there is supersonic. Thanks to Andy, I know what that looks like. And Andy Hall, by the way. So here I am at this point, this juncture, and I am saying, I won't bend, but I will give everyone a fair shake. And so Wal Thornhill is a person who not only could talk the talk and walk the walk, but he made me realize that there's not a lot of people who can do him justice. Like, for example, the subject you're on right now, on that page with some pears and braids everywhere.
Yeah. Look at that.
This had nothing to do with the one thing that I disagree with him on. Do you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. Just because I disagree with him on one thing and David Talbot on one thing, and disagree with someone else on one thing, doesn't mean that I should throw everything that they say out.
Exactly. We never agree with everyone 100% of the time.
No.
Disagreement is good.
And I've talked to people who, we can have this entire electrical universe conversation without talking about Velikovsky. It's hard, but it can be done. And we can have the entire electric universe conversation without talking about electric universe at all, just talking about myths. Yeah. Well, those are two interesting points of view. And when those two linked, that's when these people were on the right track. And that is what Wal Thornhill facilitated. Mm-hmm. He made that connection. That's what he should be known for. If anything else, he's the one that said, hang on a minute, but in Australian, whatever that is. And then he said, that's an electrical discharge phenomenon. And someone up there said, what? And that is during a Cornea conference in, maybe 1995, 96, 94, somewhere in that area.
And you knew him? No, you didn't know.
No, I didn't know him at all, but I know this story. And
Okay.
he's the one that said,
Well,
that's it. That is an electrical discharge formation.
right, yeah. Yep, you're right. Yeah. He
And
was
so
right.
he linked Velikovsky and the electric universe together for the first time. He's the guy that did that. No one else can take credit for him. Like that's it. That's the guy. And if it wasn't for him, both sides would be looking down the wrong area without this collaboration. This collaboration, which, by the way, as we talked before, has its detracting elements. For example, you have people who are, for lack of a better term, Bible thumping, and they believe you because they want to use you to prove their theories. You have someone who's trying to sell crystals, and they want you to prove that their crystals do something,
Yeah.
and everything like that.
But
Everything.
the story of how Wall and Dave knew each other before they came together, and then came together and were both describing the same thing. That story is like magic, you know. It's
It was
it's
the
a
link.
great story.
It's the magical link that.
Yeah.
Well, let me put it to you this way: it is the link that made the gods again.
Yeah.
Like before, we were talking about what the gods were in Velikovskian terms,
Yes.
and we knew that we were planets, right? But we didn't really understand. And then someone said, "No. Let me explain it to you this way: planets on fire." Oh.
It's a whole new way of looking at the myths. Now they're describing the story in the sky.
And it'd be slow-moving fire. It'd be weird-looking fire. It'd be kind of following the magnetic fields fire. You know, that's why there's a handbag reaching out back there. It's not, the hand is not a hand that's sitting in front of the object. The hand is reaching back towards Saturn. That handbag is Saturn. On his wrist is the star of Saturn.
Ah, I see what you're saying.
So that handbag is the tail of Jupiter reaching off backwards from the winged man that Jupiter is, and sitting on his throne or whatever, reaching back towards this Saturn in the background, connected to it.
And what is that? Which character? Which god?
That's anything with the handbag, the Sumerian handbag. You just type that in.
Oh, Sumerian handbag. Okay, yeah.
See, and you can see suddenly you're looking at something completely different.
Gotta be cool. I don't want to go. I usually do that.
Well,
Yeah, Greg's typing again.
see,
Yeah.
so it used to be the two lions that were feeding the world on either side of it, but that's why they're there right now. Notice the flower in the middle is the flower from the top of the flower that was coming up from the middle of the world. Why is that handbag so important?
Right.
It is important because that is the symbols that used to be the god. Okay, those are symbols of Saturn. The two lions on either side with the tree in the middle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the fleur de lis. That's the tree of knowledge. That's everything about Saturn. Okay, on this handbag. Okay, now you go take that handbag and you put it held by the gods.
Yeah.
Now his wrist, he has like a wristwatch on.
Yes.
And that wristwatch is a flower. See?
Yes.
Right there?
Yep.
That flower is Saturn as well, isn't it?
Yep.
The symbol for Saturn, the ancient symbol for Saturn.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
So that bag is Saturn.
See, I thought they were astronauts and he was carrying his own air conditioning.
No. And that body he's looking at, look at the body. That is those wings, those are the wings of Jupiter, the new god.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
Earth, man. What's up with
the
Earth?
gigantic plumes coming out of it. Imagine how big that is. If Jupiter if you saw the size of Jupiter, it would be bigger than a quarter in the sky at arm's length.
Okay.
Way bigger than that.
Wow. That's a good way of putting it.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
can see this beautiful thing and a beautiful guy over there with wings around him on a red throne, reaching back with a handbag. That handbag, of course, is Saturn because it's behind Jupiter. It's still connected to it. They're still fighting.
Interesting.
They're both traveling back towards where they're eventually going to stop, which is
How can you
5 and
glean
8
something
AU.
like that? That's
Look at
amazing.
look at the snakes on either side of it. There's the acorn. Now the acorn, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
that's another planet that it's reaching to.
Is that maybe a cone of that monatomic gold?
No, what I think that is, if I was a bet man, and I'm not exactly going to want to bet this one, but that cone is probably Uranus, the other giant planet that was attached to, but remember, it has a sideways magnetic field. Because it's on its side. Uranus is on its side, so it looks like a cone.
Yeah, they're carrying it
Okay.
on both. They're both
Right.
hemispheres.
Well, they're reaching back. Notice how he's holding it very weird. It's because that's the way the tail is. The tail of Saturn or Jupiter is broken up into two directions. One is heading towards a planet and holding it there, and the other one is the handbag, Saturn, and holding it there. Those are the two gods. All three gods are in that picture. Notice, by the way, the two things on either side of the head of Saturn. Of Jupiter, I mean. Look at those two giant puffballs on either side of its ears. That's the torus, the magnetic field of Saturn looking back at you. The rings. Of Jupiter, sorry, Jupiter. And the wings, of course, are the plasma field that you can see, concentrated by the magnetic field.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that is. That's what that's a picture of.
Man, you're blowing my mind, Neil. That's pretty cool. I just, how that can all be gleaned by that.
I'm certain
Amazing.
that anyone who studies this stuff as much as I do would recognize. I mean, for a long time it baffled my mind. I mean, I've heard Andy have a conversation about it. Some people are trying to say it's this, it's that, but look at the symbols in the middle. Look, what is that of? That's a guy choking down two friggin' snakes on either side of him, okay?
Yeah,
With
yeah.
blinds below.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, he has a dress on, a skirt as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So, this is this fella here. Now, if you look at ancient symbols, two snakes or two poles or two posts are on either side of the celestial thing that goes up to heaven. Okay, through the North Pole.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have two pillars on either side of doorways today.
Yeah, and you got all that
from
wide
that.
picture of the guy holding two things.
Yes,
that's like a worldwide thing.
That's the squatter man. Notice the vagina in his legs. Okay, like if he was spread, if his legs were spread. Okay,
Yeah.
imagine they both were spread. Then you would have a vagina sitting there where his feet are right now.
It's getting a little freaky.
No. But
I know.
that's called a Sheena and a gig.
I've seen it in a gig.
And they're in Ireland. They're the female version of this man.
Wow, you amaze me, man. That's amazing.
It's just type in Sheena or Sheila
Sheila?
na gig. So
Okay. Sheila.
N-A.
M-A.
No, N-A. Like not
N-A. N-A.
space. Oh, there it is, right there. Sheila Nagig. Right down there in the fifth one down.
Okay.
Okay. That's the symbol, see?
Okay.
And they have that pronounced vagina look to them because they're not real, obviously.
Take some. It's okay.
But that's obviously not what it's about. I mean, look at the eyes. The eyes are those beautiful transfixing orbs that are sometimes considered to be owl eyes.
You know how great these carvings are? Is like, do you
know what's
think
even great?
Like
You know why
anyone
they're so
today can
great?
create something in the last 5,000 years?
Well, do you know what's so great about them?
What?
Is that they destroyed the churches, that the original symbols in Ireland, and replaced them all with churches. And do you know what the guys did? They put these back up on the tops of the churches where the pastor couldn't see them. That's why they still exist today in Ireland, because they're all over the place.
I see that.
They were giving the middle finger, and they're all high up, so you can never find them. That's the squatter man right there.
The squatter man.
That's the squatter man right there.
Wow. Yeah, I know they got it. You know, the ancients had some weird thing about sex. You know,
But that's not.
They had penis hang up.
But look how weird that is. Of course you'd have to hang up about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that thing looking at you when you're trying to. I mean, I'm trying to get it on with my girl, and I'm seeing this eyes looking in the. I'm looking at the windows. I'm looking at the windows and seeing the big-eyed lady with her vagina showing there, man.
She's dilated 10.
Like every night she's there looking at me.
Yeah.
No wonder they get fucking freaked out in here.
Oh, I know. It's crazy.
And remember, they can only see this from this point of view because they're in Ireland. They're very close to the They're very close to the original source. Remember, it's just across Greenland. You skip Iceland to Greenland, you're at the bottom of this Sheena na gig.
I'll be damned. Yeah, I just learned that new. I never knew that before. Yeah, I see. Yeah,
so they're basically they're seeing the bottom of something that you cannot see if you're farther away.
That was a giant plasma formation in the sky right above people's eyes, right?
But if you go back and back and back to say Egypt, you would only see the head.
Okay.
That's where the head, like in Greece, in ancient Greece, you only saw the head of this thing. That's the owl eyes. And then there was stuff coming out of the top of it that was even bigger to you. But that was the brightest point way down there, and that's why they drew it.
Was this during Jupiter's reign?
This is during Saturn's reign.
Okay. That's interesting.
So these symbols are diligently carved and recarved is the way that they were, and they're thousands of years old.
Oh, yeah. It's
That's
only in Ireland.
Modern. That's a modern retelling of it. Obviously, you can get the.
It's only in Ireland, though.
Only in Ireland.
So Irish people would get this. It's like some goddess, right?
Yes, she's a Sheila na gig.
That's cool. Yeah, I wouldn't mind having one.
If you type into Wiki, you'd learn all about it. It's British.
Sheila na gig. Yeah, maybe I'll get like a little garden ornament. You know, my son's real proud of his Irish roots.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I have some Irish roots as well, so I can understand it.
Yeah.
The Scots had a different situation. Remember, they had the Gaels came in and destroy all the Pictish shit.
Yeah.
The Pictish shit would have been the Pictic shit that got destroyed and replaced with Gaelic shit, but they didn't have the Sheena na gigs. If there were Sheena na gigs, they were all destroyed by the Pictish, any versions of them. And replaced with Gaelic versions. You see what I mean? So basically, we cannot trust any Scottish renditions of Sheila na gigs because they are pretty much guaranteed inauthentic to the originals. You get my meaning?
Yes. Yeah. You know, I have to let's take 5.
I have to go.
Oh,
I should go anyway.
Well, we'll just make this part 1 because I wanted to talk a little bit more about Wall, and we kind of got sidetracked, but it was good.
This is what we're supposed to do because this is what Wall did for us, right?
Yeah, he got us into the deepness, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have learned about Velikovsky, you know.
Well, why don't you think of some questions with regards to specifically Wall, and I'll come back on tomorrow, maybe even. And
that sounds like a darn good idea. You know, I think I'll ask my subscribers if they have any questions.
Yeah, I'll be happy to answer what I can.
Because I'm going to live stream this, and then we can maybe do a question and answer after.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, they can.
I'll make myself available for tomorrow. We'll pick a time maybe a bit earlier than this and go with that.
Okay, sounds good. I'm going to have to announce a live stream, so I would think that if you want to do that, I'd have to live stream tomorrow then.
Of course, whatever you like.
Yeah. Okay. I'll work it out.
I mean, if for some reason I am injured or otherwise incapacitated,
I
will let you know immediately.
Okay.
But as of right now, I have plans for tomorrow except for go to the store. So
say tomorrow night about 8.
Sure.
Okay, sounds good. All right. So we'll be hanging up with this one then, and we'll be taking questions live.
I love this. All right. Well, see you later, Andrew, and See you later, of course, Greg.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for doing the show, Neil. I appreciate it very much.
No, well deserved it. And to avoid us getting off topic, maybe we should ask some questions about him because
I think it's a good.
One thing I'll tell you right now.
Yeah.
The reason I took this interview right when you asked is because Wall would do it.
Yeah.
Wall would take an interview anywhere.
Well, I had the pleasure of exchanging a couple emails with him, and I could tell just by his response that he was a busy guy. He was constantly busy going.
Yes, I agree.
And he kept saying, "No, I can't. I'm booked, but keep asking."
See?
Then so
keep asking.
But thank God we have all of his wonderful works that will go on to teach people in the future for decades to come. And it can change the world. Well, it should. It changed my life. Every aspect of my life has changed since I discovered the electric universe and Immanuel Velikovsky and Saturn theory, electric universe. It's all just been a win-win. We're so much more enlightened because of gentle souls like Wall Thornhill.
But I think that they'd also, those ones that only have a hole in them, they're completely encapsulated.
Yes,
they don't seem to be on top of high ground. Okay, they're not the ones on the bedrock. They're the ones somewhere down the slope from the bedrock. Okay, yes. And imagine the storm is so dangerous now that you're willing to sacrifice all your animals. Okay, because this is what you have. I mean, if you're moving from place to place, you're probably moving with a herd. Okay, but you're now saying, I'm willing to squeeze in this hole with my family and everyone that can get in here, so that we now have a Faraday cage around us. Right. And all these animals, we just have to say they're going to fucking die.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have sworn. I apologize.
Oh, no, that's okay.
But I mean, I just picture how dangerous that would be. Because as you know, lightning can kill a herd of caribou, just like boom.
They do. Yep.
And the larger the animal, interestingly enough, the worse this effect is. It's called step voltage. It's something that, do you ever hear about the idea of jumping out of a car with both feet if it had something on it, like a live power cable?
No.
Well, you don't step out of the car. You don't want to create a current pathway. Well, in a lightning strike, it raises the voltage, or it raises the charge of a particular area, and that charge dissipates along a curve. And if there's a sufficient voltage between the front of the animal and the rear of the animal, the legs,
I see.
It creates a secondary current through the animal, which kills it.
I see.
So it's much harder for a human being to die because we stand up.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, we could get hit. Okay. Don't get me wrong, but we're not creating unless we have a step going. Like if we have a complete step between us. That's why if a lightning hits on an area, it's only those people who have their legs spread apart that are going to die in that instant when it happens. It's not, it's not a sure thing either, of course, like someone could get hit right in the head,
Yeah.
Life sucks, but generally speaking, and I picture this is what these things were for. And I base this on the decaying instances of electrical phenomenon in our atmosphere as time has gone on.
Yeah.
Such as St. Elmo's fire or electric fog, other things like that. That basically the lightning is just not as powerful as it once was.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, it's a powerful lightning bolt, and yes, it scares the dog, Yes, this is scary. Yes, we admit this, but it's not, we have to seek cover now. Like it's huff, puff, blow your house down type lightning,
Yeah.
Like, and these people, we gotta understand, we're living in, like these people were not living in the same places as they were, like in Egypt or something, or Babylon, where they had walls and everything to protect them. Now they're just living in wandering with their herds and farming and so forth all over Europe, and these people were still able to erect these things knowing full well of their use.
Yeah, I was just noticing there's a dolmen in Minga in Spain, and it's the largest known dolmen found, and a 19th century archaeologist found skeletons of 700 people inside.
See?
It's pretty huge, yeah.
But
good.
dolmens are often considered to be the entire pile of rocks that were on top of these rocks.
Mm-hmm.
You see, and I don't buy that. I think that they were covered over later because they were holy sites.
Yes.
Just like Göbekli Tepe was covered over.
Right.
They covered over. They went like this and turned into a shrine, like a pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
Like a holy place where they could go bury their dead.
Yeah.
Because it was very important to them. I mean, what it's. If you think about it in terms like this, a place where a murder was committed long, long ago is still a haunted place by the locals.
Yeah.
Years later. And the same goes for holy places, even though they have no real reason why they were holy. Some are because they were depictions of the god in the sky, like from Stonehenge all the way to that beautiful mound in Ireland, the Grange Mound, the one that looks like. Anyway, I can't. But that's also a depiction, but a different type of depiction from a different era, much closer to like the ring around Osiris, with the snake. Mm-hmm. Closer to that, maybe from a different time period, but still closely related. But when I see that type of work, it's no doubt to me that these people kept trying to get there, like to head to this thing in the sky. I can see it being very well. A lot of them didn't come back. I mean, you can get to Greenland, but eventually you're going to be underneath this thing, and it's eating the high mountains around you.
Yeah.
Okay. You're going to die.
Yeah.
If you keep playing this game, eventually you're going to get hit with something, right?
Yeah.
And there's evidence that they did. They went prehistoric man went all the way to like the northern tip of Greenland, trying to get to this thing. But it's like they were trying to walk to another world.
Right.
The illusion that we could walk off the world is because of the edge of the world is because of the rings idea. We were seeing them. I mean, almost everybody that we consider to be ancient history was seeing them from the point of view of the Northern Hemisphere. Mm-hmm. So it was like looking down at rivers. You look too far to the north, you were going to have a stairway or river to the sky going up the North Pole, or a pyramid to the sky. Like, I think that now that to me that's the peaceful time. And if that's the peaceful time that actually existed, then that's when they had the best chance of developing an actual worldwide culture at that point. Mm-hmm. The more that you look, the more that it looks like there is a surprising amount of evidence for this. Like, not just in the giant stones, because I mean, we could say that the primitive people, even they could use a saw or whatever. Let's berate them, and even say that. But
some of the stuff that they managed to pull off, besides their obvious, astronomy and stuff like that, and mathematics, was how some of the structures look like they were built to take electrical forces into consideration. Like, why else would you put all these metal clamps to connect every single stone together? I mean, you're pouring liquid metal to connect rocks together electrically, because there's no other reason. I mean, you could just basically put a divot of stone and create the same effect, right? To lock the same thing into place, but they didn't. They used metal. And they were trying to make sure that every single block was connected to every other block, which means that if you had one of these around your city would never get hit in the middle. It would always get hit around the edge, because it'd be a Faraday cage.
Yes, I see them. Yes.
Yeah, they use the world over. Like everywhere from Egypt, everywhere use those metal clamps.
Bolivia, Japan, Egypt, Greece, Tunisia, Italy. I see that.
I think that's
very good.
And that's a solution to a problem we don't have anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? And so that tells me that they were building for severe electrical events, like just basically like nothing more than giant thunderstorms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I mean, they must have been, the kind that you would picture, like in some movie somewhere, the lightning bolt comes down and blows a tower up, or something. And you're like, my God, but let's be fair. The last two that I know of are from Rome, the most recent ones. There's the story of, there's a lake north of Rome, and it was the main Etruscan city, and there was a 5-mile wide lightning bolt that came down from the heavens and destroyed that entire city.
Wow.
That's what the Romans say. I'll leave it. I don't know if they're lying. Although there is one more interesting account from the city of Portus, which Portus is Rome's port. It's literally where we get the name port from. But anyway, it's a ship fully laden was setting out across the sea, and it got hit with a lightning bolt from the blue and exploded.
Yes.
Just one, a bolt from the blue. So that was like no clouds in the sky, just boom. So that's how bothersome this must have been even then. And that was just 2,200 years ago or something. Mm-hmm. So I think if we keep going back in time, that these were worse and worse and worse. This is after the time of relative peace. Not that the pyramids were built at that time, because we know that they used smaller stones and may have used concrete and a few other things, and reused some stones inside the pyramid as well, and used some heavy gearing systems to seem to get these stones into place. So they obviously seem to be struggling, if you know what I mean. They're intelligent, working hard. I'm not pissing on their cornflakes here. I'm just saying that they certainly are not the same people that built the Assyrian.
Right.
Which is pink granite and cut, with giant saws, and beautiful. So it's clear that the Egyptians had a flaw, and one of their flaws was they worshipped the divine electricity, I think. They called it the divine waters above, or whatever you called it. Because, the aurora would have been seen day and night some places, probably. It looked like, and if you've ever seen the aurora, it's the green kind. It looks like water.
Yes.
So they used to say, well, they still say the upper and lower Egypt, but no, they mean Egypt was on the ground and the waters above were literally the waters in the sky. And it seems so painfully obvious sometimes when you think about it now.
Yes, but they still don't get it. Mainstream, they just don't get it.
Well, you can't blame them. I mean, if I was them, I wouldn't believe me either. I mean, I would like to think of myself as being more open. I would like to think, and I would like to think that if I had Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye the Science Guy in front of me, and we were just having beers at a bar, that we could talk through this, and I would make him walk out of the room going, you know what, I'm going to look into this. That's some very interesting points you made. And that's what I would like to think that they would think like.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they realize that I'm not one of the things that would shut them down immediately, which would be a Bible thumper or a flat earther or something, you know?
Yes, I just don't understand why mainstream cannot even say the word electricity, it seems. Although they are getting better, they're taking baby steps.
Yes, but clearly not fast enough. They're going to end up, in my opinion, they're going to end up killing a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have to rethink this whole Mars thing, because that's going to be, like, that's a real test of your theories. You know?
For sure.
And you're putting it all on the line now. All of your ideas, all of your money, everything, people's lives, you know, will they make it? Will they grow food, and will that food actually be edible to them? Will it look like the same food as grows on Earth? Will a baby growing in a different electrical environment, which we know that the electrical pressures have a lot to do with the growth of the actual body of anything that grows in it. It could be horrifying even. I don't even want to think that, though. Like stillbirths and so forth and other things like that. Not that I want to think of it that way, but, you know, it could be a very bad situation for them.
Well, my opinion is that mostly in the medical field, I think there should be more treatments for people on an electric basis, since it's electricity that holds our cells up, and our bodies are electric. You know, disease could be something from, you know...
Technically, everything's electric.
Yes. And I heard that pathogens can't exist in a pH balanced environment. Positive would be acidic, negative would be pH.
No, it's reversed. Negative is acidic, positive is...
well, negative ions from the Earth are good for you, and negative electrons, that's negative, right?
Well, see, it all depends on how you get them. A negative ion is just an electron. And,
right.
But an acid is like, battery acid is like something that has a pH of like 0.5. Water is 7.
Yeah, our bodies are 7.4 pH.
Yeah, just a little bit alkaline. Yeah, Ideally. And now I heard about the disease thing. I think that might be probably something from the Andromeda strain, but
no, Rife. You know Rife?
I do know Rife. Yeah,
he was treating cancer with what do you call it? Ultrasound or something like that. It was 100,000 hertz was killing cancer cells. He took 30 people in stage 4. You heard that story, right?
No.
He took 30 people in stage 4 that were hopeless and cured them. And for his troubles, he got thrown in a madhouse.
See, I mean, blowing up, I mean, we use that exact technique to treat gallbladder stones and stuff like that. Kidney stones.
Yes. Yeah.
That's how we get rid of it nowadays, by using ultrasound and resonating it till it explodes.
Yeah, the Rife machine was doing that. 100 to 300 hertz. That's pretty high.
No, it's 100 to 300 hertz is pretty low.
I mean, 100,000 hertz.
Oh no, that is pretty high.
Yeah.
That's just on the other side, just on this side of infrared.
Yeah, you know that guy, that Bosnian pyramid guy, he was the one who was talking about the Rife machine. And he said that actually
I wrote to him actually once.
Oh, you did? He said viruses are shaped like a pyramid.
Some of them.
Yeah. And he was talking about the Rife and how you
It's also a question about whether or not viruses are even from here.
Yes, they could very well. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Tom Van Flandern had a theory that came from outer space. Velikovsky was on that too.
Yeah, same with the late Sir Fred Hoyle.
Yes.
And Sturmia, his idea that dangerous flues came by every time, especially when 45 days after a conjunction between Venus, a new moon, and the Earth. I thought that was very interesting.
It is, indeed.
I wonder if, well, I guess we can't really judge now because with the artificialness of COVID strains, or the original COVID strain, probably.
It's funny, the COVID virus resembles a star to me.
It is. It's all coronaviruses, actually. The only difference of a coronavirus, I think, is its feet. The little feet on it look different. They're all a big ball.
Yes. Yep.
And they're almost all respiratory, I think.
Yes. Yep. They are like SARS. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm not really an expert on that for sure. But
no, me neither.
I'm very interested in times when it's said that horrifying things came from the stars, like after comets and stuff. That seems to be another thing that might have been a worse thing in the past too. Well, of course, we've heard the story. I mean, in fact, literally, the word disaster, if you break it down, is literally the word bad or dis, and aster, which means star.
Yep.
So it's just a
bad star.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what a disaster is a bad star. So that's how bad comets were to them. And imagine what that must have been like some of those things coming down. They would explode at a distance, but still, it would be wouldn't be unlike a nuclear bomb in some cases. I mean, just look at Tunguska. I mean,
yes. Wall has a pretty good theory on Tunguska that it was taken out by a thunderbolt.
I agree.
Yeah.
In fact, I did a presentation on electric geology. I have it on the Electric View. You find their specials there, and it's the Electric Geology Toolkit. One of the things I talked about was if a Tunguska-sized boulder came in, it would have, according to witnesses, but also scientifically, it should have a giant beard coming off of it of streamers reaching down to the ground, trying to make a connection. And that's why they said when it came in, it looked like a pillar of light. And finally, one of those pillars, one of those beards made a connection with the ground at some point. And that would have been one heck of a thunderbolt. That's 20 megatons.
No doubt about it. Yep. Nuclear. I hear H-bombs short out the Earth's electrostatic field.
Well, I think that's short out is a strong word.
Yeah, well, that's what Dollard says. They affect it in some way.
Oh, they certainly do.
Yeah. So you could say nuclear weapons are just an ultra-electric kind of a weapon.
They literally are.
Yes.
By what you do is, like, they're basically stealing so many milli-electron volts out of each atom when they do a chain reaction, and that amount, it just that percentage that they're taking out, each electron volt out of that, equals billions and billions and billions and billions of volts that it just shorts and explodes.
Yeah, so an X-ray machine contains an anode and a cathode. It must just shoot supercharged particles through you.
It does, literally.
Yeah.
In fact, it's just that they're, because of their frequency, they manage to go between everything but bones. That's really it. And that's why we need a piece of film to read them.
So gamma rays would be a certain sort of EMF wave then?
Yes, except that usually when you hit a certain point, like anything above light begins to push into stuff that can ionize.
Yeah, and that means glow.
Well, it can knock atoms. It has enough energy to knock knock atoms out of place in your body and knock DNA out of place.
Right.
As it passes through you. Mm-hmm. And that's what is the scary part of a lot of that.
Yeah, cosmic rays.
Well, luckily we have the Earth's shield. A lot of people were talking about, oh, the Earth's magnetic field is weakening, and I'm like, it's not gonna. Look, even if the Earth's magnetic field overall drops to zero, the currents that power the magnetic field are still there. And the only thing that's happening is that the compass needle is now pointing in another direction soon. But that's the overall field, not the individual fields that make up, say, the jet stream or all the currents in the ocean, or none of those are going to stop.
Right.
So right. We're going to still have lots of electromagnetism around us. Mm-hmm. And 2 meters of water shielding, which is the atmosphere. So still, I, as much as people might be worried so much, don't panic. Computers might have an issue, but I don't think it's going to destroy your power grid or anything.
Now, what about the poles wandering? Is that a concern?
Well, it's wandering because of what I said before. It's a concern if we were a giant spinning magnet, which we're not. We are the overall electric field wandering, or magnetic field wandering, is because of the fact that the southern pole, which right now is the strongest pole, is getting weaker and is becoming linked to the is basically going to get weaker than the northern pole, and it's going to cause all the compasses to flip. But there's a current moving in the North Pole and in the South Pole, and then it goes out along the equator, or the ecliptic, and it's connected by a bunch of plasma bridges, we'll call them, or plasma tubes coming up from the ground that connect to these basically to these Van Allen radiation belts, and that is where we store our electric energy for the planet. And also along the surface, of course, but any excess usually gets stored up there. That's why when we get hit with massive EM fluctuations from the sun, or blobs of plasma or anything, what tends to happen is that we just get another belt as it processes all these electrons. Electrically speaking, we're just a little load on a circuit. So, and it's going in the poles no matter what. It's going in the North Pole and the South Pole, but because it's going in fast or stronger at the South Pole, that makes, which is our geologic, or magnetically speaking, that's our North Pole. I know that sounds strange, but because the South Pole of your magnet points towards it.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, I know it sounds a little confusing, but the South Pole is actually in the north.
Yeah, like when we say the north magnetic pole is wandering, that's the southern pole of the magnet.
Yes. They're both wandering, according to.
They are, because they're getting more and more imbalanced, and because this is now, this would sound crazy if this was all coming from inside the Earth. We could be using this and going, the poles are wandering. This must mean the wobble of the mantle and the blah and the blah and the blah and the blah. I don't think that at all. I think what's happening is that it's coming from the outside, going in and out along the ecliptic, and the overall strength of one over the other determines the magnetic field. But even if our compass just starts spinning around in circles and it's just perfectly at zero, okay, it can't tell where north is anymore. All of those currents would still be traveling, and all those magnetic fields would still be generated. They would just be canceling each other out on the north and south pole, respectively. See what I mean?
Yes.
But it's still there. It doesn't go anywhere. That's the part that people who don't know this sometimes get confused with, and they get doomsday.
Yes.
I'm like, no. The load on the circuit can't stop.
Right.
Okay, because there's no situation in which, unless the solar wind stops, if the solar wind stops, then yes, our magnetic field will completely stop. Okay, it's quite possible that would occur. But as long as the solar wind comes out, or as long as the sun is still shining, we should have a magnetic field.
Yes. I think I read from Don Scott's website that the solar wind did stop for 3 days once.
The solar wind stopped at a particular, well, number one, it probably didn't completely stop, but it probably decreased greatly.
Yeah. Yes. Now the sun has been acting up lately. It's just it's kind of in a weird phase, but you couldn't tell it by the days and the heat and all that. It's still the same. It's crazy how the sun operates, you know.
Well, that's because a lot of the people who are basing a lot of their theories on, as much as I might debate the reason for climate change, I'll go with the evidence. The evidence seems to me that we're not causing it. However, that said,
No, I don't think so either. I think it's something with the sun.
I agree. That said, however, if you guys want to make things prettier and end pollution, I'm not going to stop you. No, if you're going to make it better for my kids, I really can't argue with that, as long as it's not, overly ridiculous. But again, one of the things that comes back when you're talking about that is that all of the planets increase in temperature. So I'm pretty sure that Buicks in Delaware are not affecting the climate of Neptune.
No.
So something else is.
Yeah.
And the reason they say it can't be the sun is because the luminescence of the sun didn't change. That means the brightness of it hasn't changed. But that's the only power they have coming from the sun. That's I think, the problem right there.
Yeah. Now, as long as the sun is a positive body, is the anode, then it will continue to be the sun, correct?
Well, there's a lot of debate on why something becomes a sun and why something doesn't. I would like to think that it has a lot to do with nuclear reactions, and nuclear reactions tend to the last reaction of material that is not, that you can no longer react anymore, is iron. So basically it goes through all these reactions until it gets to iron and stops.
Yes, but you don't really believe in a nuke core center, do you?
No, but these reactions can still happen on the surface, like it's being cooked.
I see, yes.
And getting an iron shell on it. And I'm thinking it's getting an iron shell. One of the things that iron does more than anything else is it actually compresses magnetic fields. Therefore, it pulls more electrons towards it. And it ends up with a giant magnetic field, which the sun has, highly ionized, and giving off an electric field.
So what do you suppose it might be that would first be, the first body to attract it to be a star? Do you think it would be the largest body in the system?
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly. That's all it is.
Yes.
I would think that if the sun disappeared, then and we didn't blow up.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Right.
So just say the sun disappeared, then I would see all the gas giants would begin glowing like crazy, because they would suddenly be having to deal with the addition of processing all the electrons that the sun used to. Because the circuit is still there.
Yeah.
And just because you remove the largest load doesn't mean all the other loads suddenly disappear.
Is there ever a danger that the circuit would disappear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the sun, the sun is attracting a lot with this magnetic field, and we're stuck to the side of for lack of a better term, we're stuck to the side of a space tornado. Okay. And we might have used to be in the middle of it, closer to, and the sun might have been brighter. I don't know. I don't know any of these, or we could have been orbiting Saturn, and Saturn was closer to it. Who knows? This is too far back for me to judge that. But when we would be seeing the where we are now, we see ourselves right up against the wall of the local chimney, and we are like a little wart on the side of it, a bump on the tree, and I think that beyond that, there's one attached to the side of that.
Yeah, the sun is
the side of us.
Yeah.
Which is Proxima Centauri, and it's 4 AU out from us, from this chimney. So it's like we're sitting on certain layers inside this chimney.
Yeah.
And I think that we're sitting on the Birkeland current that's powering the sun. And because of the magnetic field, of course, it pulls in all the electrons in the area. And we drastically underestimate how many electrons are out there. If we only have 1 electron per meter, imagine how many electrons there are in 80 astronomical units.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then times that by, what is it, 2 pi r? No, wait, I had to do it in area. So anyway, the point is that that's a gigantic volume of electrons, and they would all be moved by this magnetic field that the sun is creating with all this iron that's on it.
How much iron is on it, do you believe?
Well, I think it's entirely encompassing the surface.
The surface, yeah. I was going to say, so it's a solid surface, but you're saying it's probably made of iron.
I would believe so.
And that while it's being the sun, it's generating this iron.
Yeah, it's going through the nuclear reactions as it would in nuclear fusion, and but it's all at the surface, and that's what causes. That's why we have when we look at the sun, we're supposed to see neutrinos coming from the center of the sun, but we find none. We never found any, because that's a fault of their theory, because the reaction is not coming from the center of the sun, it's coming from the surface.
Yes, that's right. That's what I think too. So if the sun were to ever go out, it would be a gigantic iron body just floating in space.
Well, yes, but it would never go out.
No, I wouldn't. But as long as it's getting feed.
As long as it's being fed, yeah. And even if it was floating through space away from the galaxy. Okay, I know that sounds totally crazy, but it's quite possible for it to still go into into a glow mode and completely encompass our planets again, like it was back under Saturn.
Yes, I see.
And then we'd have purple skies again.
And it's interesting to see the stars that are in the sun's wake, where the sun's been, other stars are. So that area is obviously still getting juice.
Oh, yes. It looked like Well, yeah. In fact, there looks like there was an explosion sometime in the past, and this was witnessed by man. So much so that it was considered it was known as the whirlpool in the sky, and it was the Pleiades.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, it was if you've ever seen a map, sometimes they have a map where they show the galactic plane, I guess you could say, and they would show you that on the map or something, just to show you like a star map, and then they would have another line that was off by 8 degrees. And that's a whirlpool, and that's in the area of the Pleiades. And so this means that all the stories of the whirlpool through Jason and the Argonauts and all that have to be recollections of some event that they witnessed, because that boat went down through the whirlpool and came out the other side. And we must have saw, and today there's a giant belt of stars around that called the Gourd Belt, which is still expanding. So it's very interesting how we see things in the sky, and they must have been amazing. Could you imagine seeing a giant explosion? And it wouldn't. That's only like 200 light years away.
What's it called?
The Pleiades.
Yes, Pleiades.
Pleiades, whirlpool, ancient, I guess would probably be a good search.
You need to share screen, Greg.
Huh?
You need to share screen.
They're close to wrapping this one up, but I'm telling you, past hour and a half plus.
Oh, I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
I would love to have you come back. You know, we can still go for another 10 minutes or so.
Oh, well,
It's gone by so fast. It's crazy.
Well, that's what happens when you get talking, I guess.
Andy, do you have any questions for Neil? We've been looking forward to this for long.
Yeah, we have, and it's good to hear you again, Neil. I used to listen to you. Gee, it'd be a few years. Time flies. It'd be a few years ago now when you used to have that. What was it? You'd be on YouTube, Electric Universe, something like that.
The Electric View, yeah.
Yeah. I used to often listen to you on that of the morning. And the same, you'd go 3-4 hours sometimes. No worries at all.
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just said I was on it once and I loved it. But go ahead.
No, it is. Well, like I was telling him that it's clearly. I'm just trying to get back in the swing of things after going through some tough times myself, but due to my injury. But this is how you get back in the saddle, and it was really good to have a friendly face up there, someone who's going to throw me the softball questions.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely an ally.
It's not only that, is it, Greg? It's more, it's not like you're saying anything that's really offensive to anybody.
Yeah.
In some ways, different view to what they've ever heard.
Oh, yeah.
You put it in a mix of all the things in life, and out of it you get bits, you go, I reckon that's pretty right, that.
Yeah. My people are going to love this.
But I didn't really think about the questions. I just found it a very interesting conversation. And when it's over, I'm going to think about 500 more that I should have asked, which is why we got to have you back again, Neil. It was a blast.
It was fantastic.
I very much loved it.
I would.
We hear from Shockwave a fair bit, don't we, Greg? And
right.
We hear from Shockwave a fair bit.
Yep. Yep. And trying to get him. He's doing good. Yeah. We had a show with him not too long ago. Yeah.
It was an impromptu one too, Neil.
But he always speaks highly of you.
Yeah, because he's the one who's often said that you hadn't been well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully the corner's turned and you can get back.
Yes,
That would be ideal.
yes. I'm all for it, man. Do whatever you need, but I'd love having you on the show again. Can we do this again?
Well, I wouldn't see a problem not doing it. That'd be great.
Yeah, okay, that's cool, because first you're a new face, and second, people know you, and you're full of that knowledge that I love. So it was a fantastic time, man. I really had a great time.
Well, I'm going to just...
Can we pick up from where we left off next time, Pleiades?
Well, I was going to say here, because I'll actually show you something.
Okay, yes, let's finish up.
No. I mean, I had a opportunity to just grab this photograph.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll put it in video.
I'm going to put it right into
chat
to you. Yeah, right into the tab here. If I can learn a link.
Yeah. Send me as many pics as you want if you want them in the show.
Oh, I just grabbed this one because I saw it, because I wanted to show you the. If you see where the Pleiades is. Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry, I didn't upload it. There we go.
Yes.
Right. So that right there is where the Pleiades is. So see that blue line? That blue line's the ecliptic, where the Milky Way is. So you see where Orion is right down there. Mm-hmm. The Pleiades is right there, and if you notice, they tried to do it some justice where it's straight on. But if you notice that if that disk was straight on, it would be about 8 degrees away from that blue line. See?
Mm-hmm. I see. And
that's the whirlpool right there, and it's always on maps. And in fact, according to this wonderful little thing that I looked up of Messier objects, that it was the Babylonian astronomers knew the Pleiades as Momo, the star of stars. Mm-hmm. Aztecs based their calendar on the Pleiades, with the cluster's helical rising marking the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Kind of messed up.
Yeah.
But I mean, just to give you an idea that they it was an important thing, and we still, but like I've said about religion, in well-meaning they're trying to warn us about something they can't remember in a lot of ways, and it's the same thing here. All these cultures are saying, "Hey, the Pleiades, something really big happened there," and we're all going, "Ha, myth."
Yeah. Do you think the sun was ever part of the Pleiades?
No, but I don't know that for sure, only because I don't know.
They are G-class stars, are they not? Most of them.
I think they are. Yeah.
Yeah. Main sequence.
But it's just something very interesting, that how important they were to other people, and we still marked it on maps, that type of thing.
Yeah, the Seven Sisters. Yeah, they do rank very high in ancient lore. Yeah, I've read a lot about them.
Oh, and you'd also think that our sun, Greg and Neil, you'd also think that our sun would have a mate somewhere. Usually on the electric, it's a pair, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's theories about that. Degrazia's got Celeria Binaria, that its twin turned into the planets. And then you've got Velikovsky's Saturn theory, and then you've got, there's all kinds of them. That happened. Like someone's trying to say that one star, what's the name of it? Sirius is the sun's twin, because it goes away and then comes back,
Sirius is actually something very unique.
Yes, it is.
Sirius is along the chain with us.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, it's the only star that doesn't rotate.
It doesn't rotate.
It stays with us as if we were both attached to the same cord.
Yes, we have something going on with them. I know that. I don't know.
Yeah, they're down the pipe from us, so to speak. If it was the Birkeland Current or the local chimney, as they call it, then down below, Sirius is right in the center of that thing, and it's getting the full brightness. That's why it's one of the brightest stars in the sky.
Now, is there ever a time when Sirius might come so close to the sun, meaning the Earth, that it would cause cataclysms?
No, it's too far away. It doesn't orbit us.
It could never have influence in our system then.
No, in fact, it's stable because it stays the same distance from us
at all times.
It travels along with us along this coordinates, going the same speed as we are. So all the other stars move in reference, except for Sirius. Sirius always stays with us. Yeah. And so do the Pleiades. Isn't that interesting? See, they're all part of the same little group, and they're all attached to this thin, wispy pipe that it would look like a vein if you could make it go faster and speed it up.
Is Betelgeuse part of the circuit?
No, I don't know where Betelgeuse is actually. I do know that Betelgeuse is going through a phase change right now. Yeah. But that's why they think it's shrinking, and I'm like, oh, guys, really?
Yeah, I know. They think it's going to blow up because it was a red giant and it's going to be a white dwarf and that whole thing. But that's just the circuit. It's just a red giant.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that we might find a whole whack of planets in there.
Yes.
When it comes out, and if depending how long it's been like that, those bodies could be the perfect breeding ground for life.
The cradle of life. Yeah, that's what Wall calls them.
And he's not lying. I think that he's
right on.
I think he's got that nailed down, because
I do too.
The amount of water that would be generated just by the hydrogen interacting with the oxygen alone.
It would be a paradise, just like Earth once was.
Well, paradise for people who like it wet and dinosaurs.
Yeah.
But even the whatever they got in the so-called golden age, we'll call it, I think I hate to say it, but that whole idea of giants always hits me a little hard, especially when you realize that the last giant cow was eaten in 1590.
Once existed. I do.
Well, I if they did, it just because we're kind of stupid, unless we have animosity towards these things, we always think bigger is better. So bigger people are better. It sounds crazy, but I'm sure that they would do that.
Brain.
Well, yeah, but it didn't make them any smarter. They had to eat like crazy.
I don't know. But some geniuses existed sometime on Earth to build pyramids and things we still can't do today.
Oh, I think that we could build the pyramids. I'm more concerned about what came before that. Like some of those beautiful stonework that they found underneath that one pyramid with all the vases and the thin, I mean, showing lathe work that was light year, we couldn't do it today. Beautiful stuff. It makes you question the whole anything. With that command of the stone, it seems like they could before, and then suddenly, just one day, it was all over.
All over. Yeah. Neil, it's been awesome. I got a live stream that I got to get ready for, and this one's going to go in the books, and we're going to have to get together again.
Oh, we should. Absolutely. It was fantastic.
It was.
There were so many things that were discussed that you can re-listen to, and then put them in, and then break them down and discuss the individuals of it. You go back to art, creation, you talk about what we were just talking about, Birkeland currents. Each one of them is a subject on its own, isn't it?
It is, and you bring a little bit of, sometimes you have to go with the knowledge of the people that you're with, and
yes.
I guess anyone who knows Grave J knows what a Birkeland current is.
They better.
At this point.
We talk about it quite a lot here. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, the Electric Universe, I mean, the Thunderbolts group, I discovered them in 2014, and I was inspired so much that I started my own channel and started doing, before that I was just wasting time,
Well, it gives you something worth doing, and
Oh, yes, definitely.
I hope that some of the things we got to talk about end up in the like I basically have to put together a nice little presentation for the Detroit thing. Should I be able to go?
Oh, I hope you do, because I'm going to be there.
No, I'm looking forward to it. It should be. I mean, like I said, I
haven't been officially invited yet. But
with my back, I don't know. But at the same time, I'm like, well, as long as I can, certain things could be achieved. I think I could pull it off. It's only for a weekend, right? So
Right.
it's not exactly like if you can deal with the fact that every time I wear myself out, I'm just going to go, instead of partying tonight, guys, I'm going to go to bed. Okay, but besides that,
yeah.
I'll try to party.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, it's been great, and I hope to talk to you again.
Oh, you will, dude. We're going to have to hook up. I'd like to do this again, and soon.
Excellent. I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll let you go then, and
Okay.
thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thank you. We'll see you again, Tim. Take care, man.
The Archangel. In the scriptures, the destination of the army of Sennacherib is said to have been caused by a blast, and a few verses later it is said to have been the act of an angel of God. The Talmudic and Midrashic sources, which relate that the army of Sennacherib was destroyed by a blast and scourge accompanied by a terrible din on the night following the day when the shadow of the sun returned.
That's it. Good night.